Coming and welcome to the meeting for the Raleigh Planning Board. This is the first meeting we've had since the pandemic, so good to see everybody and back in this room. So hopefully we can get through this. So tonight we have a new public hearing, 3 continued public hearings, and a couple of informal discussions. So at this point, I guess I'll start by opening the meeting. And
before we open it,
we're right, I'll open the planning board meeting, but you're right. The first item on the agenda this evening is going to be something that deals with the site plan review, but however, before we get there, we've got a preliminary issue that we want to talk about, okay? And that has to do with whether this board has jurisdiction to consider this application, the application being the application by the owner-operator of a nano brewery who's interested in putting his business in leased space at the property at 60 Main Street, which previously and I guess currently is being used as a used car repair shop.
Car sales, I believe.
Used car sales.
Sales previously
service.
Precision Auto.
Okay.
They just got their license for the auto sales renewed, and that's how this actually came up. We had actually received the application, we were processing it, and they had to issue the license, but at the meeting, I think, with the board of selectmen, the owner had brought up, he mentioned about there being a nano brewery at that, a possible. Tom Mullen actually spoke, he actually followed up and he noted that in the central district, nano brewery is not an actual specific use or a permitted use that's explicitly permitted, and also that he was making the point that there's a history with this parcel because of the ZBA had originally done the special permit approvals and allowed the building where they're going in now and where the auto sales is, that building in the rear, that was part of the special permit approval. So his point was that they felt that it should be ZBA purview. But the building...
Because they're changing the use.
Yeah, because they're changing the use from one non-conforming to another.
Right.
When this came in, I think the building official made a determination that a nano brewery would fall under the consumer services establishment category, which in the central district requires a site plan review, and that's why we're here. So we're in this position where there is disagreement from the town with the town council, disagreeing with the interpretation. The zoning official's interpretation that this is a consumer service establishment. So that's what we have to decide first.
So so the preliminary determination is whether this is a consumer services establishment pursuant to the bylaw, or whether it's a manufacturing establishment. Because as a consumer services establishment, we could allow it, it's an allowable use as a matter of right, but we still have to do the site plan review. If it's a manufacturing facility, then it needs to be brought to the ZBA as a change of non-conforming use. And if it's not a consumer services establishment, we don't have jurisdiction to do anything with it.
Yeah. And so the thing I did want to point out, the board should understand that I think what the applicant is asserting is that the scale of this operation, which is 3 brewing kettles that are going to be contained in a 9 by 11 room, while there's a tasting room operation going on, that scale is way smaller than what you would consider a traditional manufacturing brewery like an Anheuser-Busch. So that's one point on the side of the applicant. I would point out, looking at consumer services establishment from the planning board point of view, that's actually in a way it's a very nebulous kind of class. I mean, in a sense, you could put a lot in it. So if the board does,
as much as that's the case, it's not perfectly defined and there's not a laundry list of items. There are a couple of examples, and those examples do kind of lead you in a direction, in that it's a barber shop, a nail salon,
Yeah,
those type of things, which are not not accessory to a primary
yeah.
product necessarily. So,
And I would also point out that I did check just other examples like of this in other locations. Maynard, Massachusetts allows, just recently, they actually changed their bylaw to allow micro distilleries, micro wineries, farm brewers, and that kind of thing. But they allow it in their central business, in their central, or in the commercial and their central business district, but they allow it by special permit. So that's one thing. We did, the plant, in Raleigh, we don't specifically say anything about breweries. Maybe that's a failing of the bylaw.
right, so to the extent that we have a brewery in town, it would be as a manufacturing site.
Yeah,
Except if this is not a brewery because it's
Yeah.
doing it at such a nano scale
yeah.
that its primary product is the service of providing beer tasting. So I guess that's worth hearing from the applicant on this preliminary matter. Who do we have for the applicant today?
My name's Ken Holstate. I'm the head brewer and 25% partner in Northeast Brewery.
Good evening, how you doing tonight?
Excellent.
You know, and yet we just don't want to, we can't move forward with something only to find out that we didn't have the authority. So what's your position on it? How do you feel about that
So
issue?
the way I look at brewing, you have a manufacturing brewer, which would be what they call production site brewing. That's not the case here. Our production would happen off-site at a licensed brewery, either at
Okay.
Ipswich Brewing or at Riverwalk Brewery in Newburyport. So those are production brewers where you see the big vats of beer.
That was one of the questions. Okay, so not all your manufacturing, in fact, significantly less than all your
Less-
manufacturing is happening on site, right?
Less than 10%.
Okay.
So we're doing one barrel at a time, what we call pilot batches. at the
I see.
brewery. So something like a test batch before we scale it up. But the main purpose of the tap room is to serve customers. So it's going to behave almost like a restaurant without food.
Mhm.
That's the best way to put it as far as the tap room goes. It would not be production. There wouldn't be trucks coming in and out of there.
So, you know, that seems to change it a little bit from that manufacturing character, and which is kind of what I would, one of the things I was hoping I'd hear.
Sort of like a bakery that has a cafe, you know?
Right.
And we have one of those next to the post office.
Which is,
But do we have a food service as a matter of right in the central district?
there is an
Reservation.
yeah, for
Yeah.
restaurants, but not,
Okay, but this is
It's not a restaurant.
not a
it's
restaurant.
not a restaurant, it's really not, it's not a food service establishment.
So is anyone, well, I'm not sure this is a question for the public just yet. Anyone have any opinion other than the applicant and the board at this point, though? So,
We have one.
sure.
Hi, my name is Dan Sapinski. I'm the butter to the parcel. I live in the Yellow House. I've lived next to that parcel for 35 years. I've never seen it cleaner, so my hat is off to the new owner. Thank you. But I also have a lot of history with the former owners, and you know, I want to understand, because it does appear that the page has been turned, and I have a copy of the site plan approval that goes back to 1994, and I want to understand as an abutter, how does this process play out? Because there were multiple different businesses on this property over those 35 years, including a diner, an antique store, an auto repair and sales business, and, you know, a tap room, you know, sounds interesting. I'd like to learn more, but I'm more concerned about what happens going forward. And because of the non-conforming uses in the prior history, do all these, or, you know, number one, how many businesses can be on that parcel? And as an abutter, does each one of them have to come before the planning board to get approval?
Well,
It actually will depend on, because I guess that current approval seems to allow for them to do auto sales and some kind of retail. So they could do that at this point.
See, I understand that
Right,
the
right.
new owner has the used car license that has been renewed at a reduced limit.
Yeah.
But like, for instance, the antique store and the diner, they haven't been in operation for is it 2 years? That once an operation
Yeah.
stops business after 2 years, the non-conforming use
Yeah.
goes away?
Well, now, a restaurant is a specific permitted use.
It's an allowable use in the district.
Allowable
Okay.
use with a site plan, so they would have, with a restaurant, they would have to go through the same process. So, there would be a process for just about anything, at least a site plan review process, and some of them might require a special permit, depending on what it is. Even if it's like a retail, like, it could require a special permit.
And they could,
Yeah, some uses can go in just by right.
Yeah, there are uses that can, in the central district, that can go in by right, but most of these, those principal uses, they're single-family, multifamily townhomes and accessory. Everything else is with a site plan or
Yeah.
special permit, so,
So how many different businesses can operate on a parcel in the central district?
well, that is what they would need to, they would be restricted by the septic system, by parking and things like that, so that's what we'd be looking at.
and the history of the site,
Yeah,
because, I mean, you're right, typically a site has one principal use, but where it has a history of having serving multiple businesses, that's the history that we can continue to, well, that's the use that's allowed, that's the pre-existing non-conforming use that's allowable.
Even if those uses have ceased operation for beyond a year? or
Well,
two?
we haven't necessarily made the determination, but.
that would be up to the building inspector.
Building inspector.
But anything that the building inspector would, if the building inspector determines that it is, he would let us know that it was, that it's by right, but you need a site plan review, or he would tell us that if it was a special permit, he wouldn't issue any kind of permit to occupancy permit for that use unless they receive the proper approval.
I just wanted to make sure, because I met the new owner and I provided him a copy of this because he wasn't aware of this. And to me, this is a key document for all parties,
Yeah.
because this is what was agreed to, and I would think traveled with the transfer of the real estate.
Yeah.
So am I wrong in that?
Well, he has to be aware that, like, any subsequent uses can't come into conflict with what's proposed. We have to look at that in tandem with the previous approved use. So he's gonna have an auto sales use. And it looks like you'll see the parking arrangement, that he's actually going to be showing, like, proposed parking spaces allocated to the Nano Brewery will be separate from the used car lot, from those already.
So with all that said, I do want to just address your question, then finish this preliminary conversation, and then see if we're going to need to move on to what this more substantive conversation. Go ahead, Del.
Oh, hi, I just want to say I'm Jennifer Souza. I'm the other owner of 60 Main Street. Before we bought 60 Main Street, it looked pretty bad. We've done a lot of improvements. We're really happy to be part of the town. From what I'm aware of, that there is 4 separate units there, and I think they all should deserve to get their own special license. That's what we were told when we first bought the property, before I even put an offer in. That's what I was told. So we're happy to work with the planning board, but I really think you guys should really consider our application. I think it's going to fall within the law of having a separate unit there. We also have the auto sales, which is just really a secondary place that we have in Somerville. So.
Yeah. The only point I was making is that each of the uses, because the Nano Brewery is coming in separate from any of the others, we don't
Yeah.
know so each time we'd have to consider what the parking allocation is, to make sure that there's appropriate parking.
But just to move on from this in a second, but we often approve strip malls that have 10 units in it, and
Yeah.
only 1 unit occupied on day 1. And then a new use comes in, they're gonna do a dog groomer, and then they're gonna do a pizza place, and then they're gonna do a marijuana
That's usually with a
establishment.
special
We
permit.
consider each use as they come in the door, but it doesn't but we're not limiting that site to one use.
Yeah.
I have one question. On the used car part of it, is there gonna be a salesman on site all the time, or is this just
I mean,
a feeder to your some of them?
At this point, we've been in the used car sales in Somerville for 30 years, and most of our cars are down there. I mean, we basically put a car out there to keep the license afloat. We really haven't decided what we're gonna 100% do with it going forward. We did get the license to keep it going. So we're not sure. I mean, right now, we have one car or two cars in the driveway. I don't think we're gonna really expand more than that.
Okay, so let's get back to this first issue. So, I mean, should we be considering this a consumer services operation? I mean, it almost seems like it's a showroom for what they manufacture elsewhere.
That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more of a tasting room than it is a brewery.
Right. And I think if those two barrels were your entire product run, then I would think it's manufacturing, because that's what you have to sell. But if you're manufacturing it somewhere else, it starts to sound like it's falling under.
I think it's just like a bakery, you know, when you have bakery equipment, and practice less than bakery.
So,
I don't have a problem.
One, just to put it in perspective, one batch is about 160 pints that we brew there. Whereas you multiply that times 10 to 15 of the stuff that we're doing offsite. So it's just small amounts, almost like test batches that we're doing there.
is there also going to be a retail component in addition to the tasting?
There'll be cans for sale.
Cans.
And we're not distributing to anybody, so like I said, there will not be trucks going in and out of there. We'll do cans for growler, but maybe not even growlers, probably just cans for sale.
So, as a preliminary inquiry, are we okay with this being a consumer services establishment?
I think so.
So, okay, so then I'm going to open the public hearing. If I can have the notice, Kirk? Okay, sorry. Pursuant to the General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 11, and General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81T, and Massachusetts General Law 40A, Section 5, the Raleigh Protected Zoning Bylaw, and the Raleigh Planning Board Rules and Regulations, notice is hereby given that the Raleigh Planning Board will hold a public meeting, a public hearing on Wednesday, July 14th at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Annex Building Meeting Room located at 39 Central Street, pertaining to an application for the site plan, SPR, site plan review for the operation of a nano brewery and tasting room consumer services establishment at 60 Main Street, further identified as Assessor's Map 15, Lot 41, which consists of approximately 1.04 acres and is located in the central downtown commercial zoning district. The applicant, Anonymous Brewing LLC, has submitted an application for site plan review on behalf of the property owner, Bob Souza of Raleigh on Main Street LLC of 3 Elliott Street, Somerville, Massachusetts. The request is pursuant to the Raleigh Protected Zoning Bylaw, Section 7.6, Site Plan Review, and Section 4.2.3, Subsection B. The application plans and relevant documents are on file with the Raleigh the Raleigh Planning Board and are available for public inspection at the Raleigh Planning Board office, Town Hall Annex, 39 Central Street during public office hours. I'm going to make a motion that we open this public hearing.
Second.
All right, so my motion, and Jack second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, so the meeting is open, and for the petitioner, who do we have?
Can I just,
Oh, sure.
I wonder if we should take a vote about that, a motion and a vote about that determination.
Okay,
To,
since we haven't otherwise documented.
Yeah.
So, as a procedural matter, I'm going to put the question to the board as to whether we're all comfortable with this use that's being proposed by the applicant being consistent with the consumer services establishment as defined by the bylaw. So my motion is that we approve it, we make that finding.
Second.
So that's my motion, and David's second. Troy?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And myself, yes, so 4 in favor, the motion, the vote carries. And we're going on the basis that we have a consumer services establishment that is being proposed. So again, if you wouldn't mind starting at the beginning a little bit and tell us, give us a narrative of what you're intending to do, and then show us what it means for the site.
Sure, do you want me to come up here or?
If you wouldn't mind coming up,
Yeah.
I know it's not a great move for a presentation, but and you can ask Kirk to help you with any plans you've given, and he'll put up on the screen.
Yeah, so I'll be playing this a little bit by ear, but I am aware of all the slides. So my name is Ken Milsey. I am the 25% owner and head brewer for Anonymous Brewing Company with Kevin. It is my, I have a day job as well, but this is a passion of mine. This is the site here. Our location will be right on this side right here, and there's a bar inside. This is I believe it'll seat about 12 people, and there's tables. There's room for about, I think, 30.
So is it just the right side stall or bay, or is it?
It is. Yeah, it's just the right hand side. So here's the. If you want to see if you can scale that out a little bit. Sorry.
Yeah, it's like, oh, there.
Yeah, so here's the planned area. So here is the entrance right here. The planned bar area is right here. This is the brewing area, so it's a very small part of it. Cold storage here will keep kegs cold. There's a restroom, and then right here would be our retail kind of window. So if somebody wants to come and buy a few cans, they can buy them right through that retail window. So that's really it. There's not much else to it.
How do you get out to that patio? Oh,
Yeah, sorry, I was getting it for the, so that's about the rest of it for the inside. There is, right beyond this bar, there's a garage door and another open and shut door right here that leads to a back patio area that we are waiting to see some specs on how many we would be allowed to sit outside. We have to still rope it off. There's a lot to be done.
Did you say the entrance is this way?
Yes.
Is this, okay.
Yeah, so the entrance to the brewery would be right here. And there is a garage door right outside there. There's a regular door that you can go in.
Okay.
Our intention is on nice days, keep the doors open to both sides.
Thank you.
So the little bit of brewing that you do there, is there any sort of waste? Are you gonna need floor drains, anything like that?
So we've been in contact with, Kevin's been in contact with a local farm for the spent grain. So what happens when you brew beer, it goes through a process where the, almost considered making the old beer, right?
Yep.
So that you stir it, and then what comes out of that is the liquid wort. From there, you have waste of the actual grain itself, and we're trying to contact some local farmers to bring it to the local farmers to use as feed.
Okay.
So we are very earth conscious as far as that goes, but we will find a farm, whether it's here or somewhere else.
All right.
It'll be about 50 to 100 pounds of spent grain.
You'll just store it in the room, and then when you get rid of it, haul it
We'll
away?
get rid of it the same day as the brew starts to stink.
Gotcha.
What else do you have for slides here?
As far as, while we are looking at this use in this unit on the site, we do have to consider the entire site when it comes to parking.
Yes.
Okay, so while, as much as we're concerned about what kind of parking demands and traffic demands your use is going to place on it, we have to do that in the context of what else is being done on that site.
Understood. Kevin was not 100, well, I was not clear in my understanding 100% because I guess there was 2 areas proposed for parking on there, and I think you would be able to answer that question better than I, where the parking is exactly going to be.
I don't have the proposed thing in front of me, but it was on the left-hand side, there was about 12 spots.
Yes.
And on the right-hand side, it was maybe 5 or 6 spots.
Okay.
And some on the side.
This is
right on
the-
the left that
Yeah.
are,
This is what Kevin submitted.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, that,
And I guess my point being that we can't, double count parking for other projects. So if, later on we look at another project, these spots are already consumed by the light on the site for this use.
yeah, there's only from parking lots, there's a 1 spot, so there's plenty of parking.
so currently there's only a 1-bedroom apartment there.
Okay.
On the first floor, there's, potential retail space, but it's small.
The first floor of the shop out
Front
front.
building.
Yeah, I mean,
We're talking about 800
I mean, I think,
So you know what would help if you showed total parking spaces,
Right.
so we can, just showing us 12 spaces.
Right.
well, and I mean, I
Because
guess,
there's plenty, you're right, there's plenty on the left
Right.
here that's not.
Just
think
12
there's-
spaces just looks like, well,
Yeah.
where's everybody else gonna park?
Right.
So-
But
Right.
yeah, if you see, there's actually an exhibit that has the approved parking plan from the prior, in,
If you go back to that old slide, you can see where all the cars were.
Building 1.
So 2 slides back, here goes. It's the live photo.
for whatever reason, I have this bar that's blocking the view.
Gotcha.
So this one's different.
This is showing 17 square.
Okay. This one's different than this one.
Well, the one is the,
Yeah, here we go.
I believe is the one that everyone's referring to as the
Yeah.
78.
Correct. He's also got another one on the permit, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So Jennifer, if I'm right here, I think there's 12 on this side.
Yeah, there's 12
here.
right there on that
There's
side.
another
Well,
few
and I
over
guess
here.
one of my bigger points though is just, if you contribute 12 spots to this site, you want to make sure you leave a balance that you'll be able to bring in your other businesses as
I
completely
mean, we
too.
could definitely get 12 spaces to this.
No, for this site, but you think that'll leave enough retail, for
Oh,
whatever retail
absolutely.
use you come in with next?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a really small retail space for us.
All right.
The first per unit is so small, we're probably gonna give them 1 or 2 spots if that.
Plus you have
Well, I
possible
mean, I
new
think it's not just the
construction.
allocation, it's consistent, allocation consistent with the site plan requirements.
Sure.
So you might want to, at some point, count the total to make sure, okay, we have to have X amount for the brewery, we also have to X amount for the retail. Make sure you're gonna have it,
Yeah.
otherwise you could be not getting the retail.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, your retail's gonna be restricted by how much parking you can get on site, and then also probably by the septic system as well.
No, the septic system fits
Okay.
everything that we
That's
want,
right.
even.
Does the brewing, even the limited brewing, has that been, and I know Mr. Barzell and the owner just put in a new septic tank, but has that been figured into the septic tank? I mean,
Yes.
So the brewing that'll happen outside, there'll be no wastewater just because it's a 1-barrel system. So there's nothing that's gonna drain directly out of there. Should it does connect to the septic system. Like, should it accidentally, like, the hose leaks or a situation like that, then
The septic tank is even, would even consider, even if we put a proposed other building in the future on the property. So it's big enough even for that, so.
I do wanna.
How much of a parcel can be paved over or built on?
There's a ratio in the bylaw of impermeable surface to lot size, so, you know, and at this point, I don't think they're proposing any new paving, but if they did, we'd
Yeah,
be
we're
looking at
not
those ratios.
proposing anything, I'm just saying.
Right. So we wouldn't tell them they gotta roll back what they already have, because what they already have, they have as a pre-existing.
We should
Use.
have a parking plan that shows all the parking at the present time, knowing that it's going to change in the future, but you can't really make any judgment based on his parking and whether, it gets too vague in this drawing.
I did
Show
want,
the parking
There's
spaces.
a better drawing, I don't know.
I did want to
if
bring
they
up
have it, but I have.
because the health department did, they got us a comment on this, so I did want to make sure that you guys heard what the health department. It says, from Frank Marchigiani, Health Director, Health Department has the following questions, concerns in regard to this application. The septic system for the building to be used was designed for a retail space for 2,106 square feet. How will the brewery wastewater be handled? Will the bar area and tasting room glasses and disposable single-use items and utensils? Will a dishwasher or 3-compartment sink be available for washing and sanitizing non-disposable items, including equipment? Will food of any type be available or served at the bar area or establishment? So, we just got that today, so I'll let,
But even-
that'll have to be addressed.
Yeah, I agree. I can answer most of that now,
Okay.
if you'd like me to. So the wastewater, I think we just addressed, and for the most part, there will be no wastewater there because the manufacturing will happen off-site.
Okay.
Any water that happens to go through hoses will enter into the septic system. It's, you're talking maybe a pint of water, which would be wastewater, and anything else would be mocked up. Can you put the rest of the questions in? I'm sorry.
Oh,
That's all right, I just want to go one by
What was
one.
it, plastic cups?
Plastic cups or
Is it
glasses?
Glasses, so you're gonna
Glasses.
generate from washing, I mean, you're gonna wash the glasses, so.
Okay, so that might be something that Kevin can answer later, so that question maybe we'll push up to.
Kirk, could I ask you, though, I mean, isn't that really all within the Board of Health's?
Yeah, it is, but the Board of Health they'll have to do a separate approval before,
Yeah.
but they would probably recommend conditions based on the answers.
Oh, okay, all right.
You might want to type this, I'm gonna send you this, and if you can answer it in writing to the health department, they'll forward us a memo of
Thank you.
response.
I don't want to.
And then we can incorporate any recommendations they have into our plan.
Yeah, so, I mean, it sounds like what they're getting at is, you gotta demonstrate that the septic system you have there is adequate to serve the various uses that you intend. Because, you know, I think this site, fine, but it's the cumulative effect of all the multiple uses that might be there is what you need to be aware of, because we might be able to approve the first three, but not approve the fourth, because you've overburdened the parking or the septic. So I just telling you to be mindful today, even though, you know, it's not gonna be a problem for you, it might be the problem for the next use, which we haven't considered yet.
Okay, thank you for keeping that in mind.
All right, so, any signage?
So we haven't discussed signage per se. We'll probably have, to start, a sandwich board sign. And then from there, we can do the wooden sign.
I mean, it's really the illuminated signs that we have
Yeah.
more concerns with. There's a sign regulation that there's a certain amount of signage you can do as a matter of right, and you should probably, you know, look into that.
So,
Along with that, lighting, any lighting
For inside the tap room,
No, no, exterior.
from exterior,
Parking.
parking lighting.
I would have to defer to Kevin on that. He's not filling in on that if there's a plan for that.
May have
So we
something
talk
to
about
do-
hours, occupancy levels, you know, all that, I think that's kind of important too.
Well, first, definitely, you know, the site plan does need to show lighting, because you're going to be serving the public, and you're going to have people coming and going in cars through parking lots and snow and different weather, so lighting is going to be important. And that lighting has to be full cutoff, and it also has to be, you know, on timer so that it's not illuminated all night long.
And along with the parking plan is, where is the snow gonna be stored, or is it gonna be taken off-site?
So I would defer to the.
Landlord's problem.
yeah, that would be a parking maintenance, you probably have some kind of maintenance agreement with the property. So what about traffic flow, you know, days of hours of operation? things like that?
So Thursday through Sunday, 5 o'clock. So we would ask for a little past 9 o'clock. We intend to have last call at 9 o'clock.
What was open?
About 5 o'clock.
Thursday to Sunday?
Thursday through Sunday, yes.
Nighttime hours, the lights in the parking lot, probably a must for you.
And how many people could be in this facility?
Just seating.
It was, I believe our complete capacity was 64. Is what they were-
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
64 is what the capacity was rated for.
I don't drink beer any longer, but when I did, I would go to the bathroom fairly frequently. And you have 64 people in that facility using that septic system?
We're not gonna have seats for 64 though. That was the official occupancy. But we-
Yeah, I mean, that's set by the
Right.
fire department,
Right,
and it's
that was
really
it,
more of
yeah.
a factor of the size of the space than the capacity to.
Yeah, they would exceed the parking.
The parking,
Another
yeah, the
capacity.
parking's gonna limit you.
Parking
Yeah.
is,
Yeah, there's no, I don't foresee that being it. I think maybe 20 people at most would probably fit in there comfortably.
Are you gonna ever do special events, like you know, hired events where you hire the room or
Any
rent the room?
of our special event plans are typically off-site. We would bring what they call jockey box, which is a tap essentially. It's a cooler converted to make taps, and we bring that off-site. So any events are not gonna happen, or at least not planned to happen on the site.
Are there food trucks? Are there outdoor music?
There'll be no music. We know that there's an inside soft stereo.
What about the outside beer garden area that you're proposing?
We're not proposing or have any plans to put any sort of music out there. That's not in the plan. We're not asking for that.
What will be the seating capacity out there?
Well, that's what we're waiting to hear. We don't know.
It could probably, you know, because, did you say Thursday through Sunday? So, I mean, somebody would, we're talking about neighbors might have to be listening to, people talking and
Yes, I mean, we're
even,
yeah, we have.
even if there's not live music, it's still.
No, I agree. There'd be people out there talking, making noise. I do understand that. And Kevin is extremely sensitive. He wants to make sure everybody's happy around the area. So our main concern is getting in there, producing small amounts of beer and serving the beer. And the outside patio is.
The outdoor seating, that's gotta go through the Board of Selectmen.
Yes,
And
yeah.
and they would set the conditions, the limits, and even things like, whether you, certainly, if you were to do live entertainment, they'd have to approve it.
Absolutely.
I don't know if they'd set conditions for outside view for speakers, would they?
They usually set that up right in the license, so no,
Okay,
no entertainment.
I would,
gotcha.
I mean, it's, we're expecting to be very low key. We're not expecting to draw massive crowds.
All right, so anybody else here from the neighborhood that has any comments, would like to weigh in on this, or have any questions? Sir?
Yes, good evening. My name is Bill Sheehan. I live at 15 Heritage Way.
Which is right on the street?
It is, and I'm a
across the street.
trustee of the Raleigh Village Green Condominium Trust. And I just have some questions and try to straighten some things out. If we could go back to the diagram showing the buildings. So we're talking about the white building, right?
Correct, let me get.
Okay, and what portion of the white building are you proposing to do?
So this would be the entrance here. There's a door here. There's another, there's a garage door here. If it's a nice day, that might be open. But that's it, this side of the building back here.
And what is presently the use on the left-hand side of it?
On the left-hand side, it's automotive, correct?
It's one long garage,
Two cars are in there.
two cars, like tandem.
What was the last prior use that would be continued? What was the last, commercial use there?
Auto service.
Auto service, okay.
Precision.
So two-thirds of it would be.
And what is the present use of the green building?
I think there's an apartment down below, the one for,
Above.
oh, my apologies.
There's a single gentleman who lives upstairs.
And the first floor is previously retail?
It was previously retail, yeah.
Donut shop.
Yeah.
It was- it
There
was-
used to be a diner.
And then there was an antique store.
It's a diner.
Norm's done.
Really happy.
But, so they redid it
Hang
inside.
out for the style.
And where are the proposed, what would be the location or locations of the proposed food trucks?
No
I
food
haven't-
trucks?
I haven't proposed food trucks here. Maybe in the future, my partner may have submitted that, but that's not in the plan. It's gonna be a one-person operation.
Food trucks, if they were to be put, in the first place, we wouldn't approve them here. They could be approved on a spot basis by the Board of Selectmen. So if
Because
if an owner wanted to come forward to the town and ask to have an event involving food trucks, they'd get a special permit from the Board of Selectmen.
Because the food trucks are mentioned in the proposal as far as the one-page document that I saw online that talked about the concept.
Well, I don't think again, we can't really approve that use as particularly as an accessory to say that they could have food trucks parked there on any kind of a revolving basis. So we're not gonna deny them, we're not gonna expressly prohibit it, but we don't have the discretion to authorize it either, so we'll just leave it to the board of the basis.
So our concerns basically are fourfold. There's, I think you addressed odor, concern about noise, concern about traffic, and concern about parking. And it seems to me that I would ask the board to consider requesting of the applicant a site plan, one plan, showing everything, showing all of the buildings, showing all of the parking, all the roadways in, the roadways out, septic system, the whole thing, so that everybody can get a better, I'm struggling with the idea of where everything is going to be, and I recognize that not everything is being sought to be permitted tonight.
Right. And from what we're telling, and keeping in mind that they're not moving anything either. They're not developing the site.
But
They're changing the use in the site.
As I understand it, the used car sales are going to take place, or are taking place at the site?
I think they have a continuing license as a used car dealership there, yes.
So, where is that operation taking place?
Yeah,
How
no,
does that-
if we haven't made it abundantly clear, we need them to show us where all the parking is and what parking is attributed to what use.
I wonder, does the board want to have, one of our engineers take a look at the parking, at the overall plan.
Well, they should present us something that
Yeah, we have to have a plan to
distinguishes
review.
what is what before. They got nothing to review
Well,
at this point. I mean, they have old plans, but they need to present us with something that's updated to the uses that are currently there. So-
Okay, so an updated site.
Correct.
This is Curtis Smith.
That's why all these questions are coming.
Yeah.
And
So have you got an engineer, or can you get an you might need to talk about?
I'll talk with Kevin about that.
Yeah. And we can actually, bring one of our engineers to do it.
And it's not, we're not looking at the stormwater on this because they're not changing anything. So as much as we do need probably more than you and your partner were able to provide with this sketch, I think we probably do need somebody to be more detailed and technical about what's, and no, not that, but there are instances when, particularly if it's a single use for a small site with a limited development, we will do something less formal or technical, but I think that's where we are on this one.
Yeah, I think there are other examples where there haven't been changes to the site. You just had to show that you could meet the parking, but this is a lot more complex because you have multiple uses.
Because it's multiple uses.
All the other cases are single uses.
I think it's the same, because I work with Timmy Watkins, who's the owner of this site. I think I have a site plan because he was looking to expand the use there at one point.
He did.
Well,
Does
he
it look
wanted
like
to
this?
expand it more out the back. He expanded it.
Is that it?
Used
Does it look
car.
like this, David?
What?
Does it look like this?
Oh, yeah, it's better than that.
Okay.
Well,
Has an engineer's stamp on it.
Well,
if you, I mean,
that's the important thing.
it's going to require some new engineering as well, but I think, first was, we typically don't get something through the board on a single night in any event. There's always a homework assignment, and it sounds like, we did get past a pretty significant hurdle in determining that we could look at it, and I think that there's some support on the, more than some support. I think it's something that there's no reason we would want to oppose it, because so far we haven't heard anything that sounds like would be a detriment to the neighborhood. So, but with that said, we have to do it, make sure we've done everything we need to do, so for that reason, we probably need more plan, more engineering to see it, understand it.
I have one other question. Have you gone before the selectmen yet for licensing and stuff like that? Because you're selling alcohol.
Yeah, so with Kevin, he has got the federal approved as of 3 days ago. Might have been 4 or 5 days ago. But that's the hurdle that you have to go through first before you can bring it to the state, and then after that it goes to.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, is there anything else we can potentially answer for you today?
No, I'm here to answer questions.
Should we make a motion? Motion to continue.
I think we will. Anyone else have any comment here today?
Mr. Chairman, Larry Graham.
Oh, Mr. Graham, I forgot we were online as well,
Yes,
so.
everybody's getting used to the.
Yeah, I presume this might be going my way. I'm pretty familiar with the front part of the site, but I haven't been around the back. And I was looking at the sketch that showed a good part of the parking in the back. So I don't know what the grading is like over the septic, number one. Whether it's appropriate to be, the grading is appropriate for the proposed parking. And number two, whether the septic system itself is designed and installed in an appropriate manner to have parking over the top of it. I think those are things that definitely need to be looked at.
You just gotta certify you can park over it.
Yeah.
Good, well, that gives you more flexibility
It's
if you
about
can.
3,000, 4,000 square feet. It's pretty big,
It's a lot bigger than I thought based on the pictures that I
so
saw.
it's massive.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Anything else you might want to add? Larry?
No, not at this time, thank you.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Anything else? If not, Mr. Dalzell?
To answer Larry's question, there's no parking on the leaching field because it's a mound.
Okay. So that doesn't, you just have to show us what you have there. Doesn't mean you needed it in the first place, but there's your answer. As a mounted system, you're not gonna get parking on it.
I do want to just briefly say to the abutters, and the neighbors, our intention is to be a good neighbor, so open door policy, if you ever see something that bothers you in any way, I'll give you my personal phone number, I'll give Kevin's personal phone number, he's very open as well. So we really do want to integrate as part of the community. Kevin's a Raleigh guy, I'm a Groveland guy. We want to make this work for everybody, not just us.
The way that I look at it is this is primarily a residential neighborhood. And, serving alcohol, whether it's only 7 days a week or 4 or 5 days a week till 9 o'clock at night, I don't know, that just, to me, that doesn't make for a good experience for the brothers.
So we both need to be certified with tips, which is a cautionary, it's a program, a certificate to make sure that we serve people properly and understand it is a pretty lengthy class that we have to go through. It's about 8 weeks.
Yeah, no, but you're serving alcohol without food, so it's just, I have a big question.
Is the outdoor seating area, is it absolutely a necessary part of your operations? I mean,
As of right now, I don't believe so. Our intention is to do more retail, sell some cans to go and have some people sit there and try the beer. We're not intending to serve people more than 2 beers, and our beers range in anywhere from 3% to 7% ABV. So our intention is never to overserve anybody, and I do appreciate the concern. I understand it. We want to be more of a quiet, low-key. We don't want anybody overserved.
It's not a bar, it's a tasting.
Exactly.
Will there be any food served?
No, we're not directly from us.
Okay.
I do believe Kevin in the future would be interested in entertaining food truck idea, but it wouldn't be through us.
All right, well, with that said, I think the next step really though is to get a site plan that shows all the parking, all the improvements, any traffic patterns that you want painted on the roadways should be shown in our signage, lighting, and lighting.
That's part of like
Yes.
the engineering review of the site plan based on the parking layout. So whatever the other retail's gonna lie, we'll probably need to look at the traffic configuration for that side. And there are 2 entrances, right?
There's it looks like.
Not just this one, but there's one.
Yeah, there's a way to get through there from the other side. Our sign, we're intending to put our sign somewhere over here, so it's not bothering the dealership and it's not bothering any, nobody was hitting.
There's not a curb cut over here.
There is.
There is,
Yes.
okay.
Is the curb cut all along up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all. It's all.
I don't think there's any curb.
To direct traffic, or where I said the sign would go, that's where it's gonna go.
Right.
But if we gain regulars or anything like that, there's nothing for me to say that they wouldn't go that way, so I can't tell you that they wouldn't. But our intention is to direct them.
Yeah, and that's why the traffic pattern would matter to a certain degree. I think, and if an engineer looks at it, he'll probably try to find ways to, safely push get cars to flow, and we do that with signage and striping.
Understood. That's
And
they're better at that than. I
since
am.
you're going that route, make sure you're ADA compliant.
Yes.
And snow storage, but all the things that your engineer should be thinking about when he's looking at this type of site. All right, so, sir.
Does the historical commission have to approve the sign?
Well,
It's on the exterior. Any exterior changes, signs?
Well, just,
yeah, I think it sounds like David's more familiar with this, the Historic Commission's regulations. It sounds like that would have to go through.
Well, John is too, because he's on the
There's a
historic.
sign that's grandfathered in on the top.
So that was a quiz. Okay. All right, then, thank you, everyone. We're gonna, continue, I'll make a,
Motion to continue to.
I'll take David's motion and Jack's second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. So, we're all,
Next meeting.
the next regular meeting, which really gives you, well, it's 30 days or more or less, but you probably want to have any engineering submitted to Kirk within 2 weeks to get it reviewed and approved. And we can't even guarantee in 2 weeks that we can have it reviewed. We haven't even assigned it to a technical review officer or agent. If you don't have it done by then, you might just want to call and have the matter continued because if we don't have a plan to look at,
Is it worth looking at it before we send it out? Or decide on who's gonna look at it, if they haven't done it in a month?
I mean, it might be, if you get it to us before the meeting, and we have a continued, I mean, it might be worth the board looking at before the engineer, but nobody can make any promises about, like, that, it's not.
because it's, once we assign it to a private engineer that reviews it for us, so he's got his own schedule, so we kind of count on a few weeks turnaround.
Okay, should we hire our own engineer? That's the.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
We definitely
You've
need
got to,
to.
So I'll make sure I call.
coordinate it with your landlord.
Yes.
All right?
She's got some things she wants to do.
And are butters notified of this next meeting?
Well, actually, no, this meeting is now an open public hearing, so it's open, and got to keep an eye on the agenda for when it gets brought
The
forward.
next regular meeting is August 11th. Wednesday, August 11th.
Okay.
We need a vote.
Oh, so we have David's motion, Jack's second, to continue this to the August 11th regular meeting of the planning board. All in favor, say aye. 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 So thank you very much. Hopefully we'll see something shortly from you, and we can look at it again.
Thank you much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing for a definitive subdivision OSRD special permit hearing for the Danielsville LLC. Bruce Tompkins, trustee of the Tompkins and David Name Trust, property owner.
Thank you very
Map
much.
9, lot 23, located in the outlying zoning district.
He's outside.
Okay.
Really?
The applicant not being here will
Yeah.
dismiss the case.
Sorry.
Exactly.
Oh,
I'll go right ahead.
Thank you.
Well, it's, you know, I heard somebody in Raleigh, describe the board as.
Oh, you missed it, we continued.
Isn't there a 30-second rule? Don't I have 30 seconds to respond?
Oh, yep. We'll note that
Well,
the applicant did
you look better than
appear.
you do on TV.
Oh, evening. And while you were out in the hallway, I apologize, I did go ahead and open the, or announce the continued public hearing. So nice to see you, we were counting on seeing you tonight. Since the last time we were here, we had a couple of technical changes you were intending to make. I know you submitted something to the board this week, I think, right?
Mhm.
And for that reason, you're probably aware we don't have much back from, in terms of comments. But,
Larry is with us. I think he's had a
good.
brief look at it.
Very good. So, Mr. Graham, we have Mr. DeCoulis here with us tonight, and we're going to let him get going here. So, Mr. DeCoulis, what do you have for us that's changed?
Okay, good evening, everyone. Jim DeCoulis, representing the Danielsville LLC. You have 11 by 17 hard copies of the plans dated July 6th, I see. That's great. Okay. Kirk is going to bring them up on the screen as well. And you know, Larry Graham provided a review on June 9th that formed the basis of these plan revisions, as well as revisions to the stormwater plan. There are 5 things I want to talk about tonight. Number 1 is Larry's comment, paragraph 1, which are the individual lot build-outs, which is on sheets C6 and C7, Kurt.
Yes.
If you could bring that up.
You want me to really bring it?
Yeah, well, let's just start with the plans, I guess, and then we can C6 and C7. So what we've done, this addresses Larry's concern in paragraph 1 of his letter. What we've done on these 2 sheets, C6 and C7, is show individual houses, driveways, and conceptual controls for the driveways, stormwater swales, as well as runoff control for the roofs, which are going to be 4 separate Caltech 280HD recharger units. Yep, we're at C6, Kirk. You know what, Kirk, why don't you just go to C7, because C7 just shows everything. It shows all 9 lots. So what we've done, there's a note on the very bottom of the sheet. And what we've done, and it's down here in the middle. I guess you probably can't read it in the,
Sure.
on that, but basically, the note is there just to simply show that there are symbols, which is an oblong hatched ellipse with an arrow showing where a stormwater swale might be for managing driveway runoff. And then a second icon is 4 chambers of the Cultec 280 HD recharger units put together, which are sized for 2,600 square foot building footprint for a house, which is a pretty good sized footprint. So we're trying to be a little conservative. And you can see at each house, we've got the driveway, the house, at each lot, we've got a house, driveway, stormwater swale, and recharger units located.
Can I just interrupt one second? The Coltec storage units, explain them. We don't see them on every proposed subdivision. Why are we using them here?
Send the treated water.
Yeah. Well, roof runoff is actually doesn't have, it's not considered.
You're talking about the big ones? Or
The little ones on each side.
Yeah. We don't have to.
Okay.
But it was one of those things that Larry mentioned in paragraph 1, just to deal with some conceptual runoff and how we're going to manage stormwater for the whole project.
Because are those systems underground cisterns? Or?
Yeah, they're just underground plastic chambers. The
Okay.
280 HDs, I think, are 6 feet long by 2 feet wide. They're plastic chambers. They're probably 40 or 50 pounds each.
Okay.
They're plastic.
Yeah.
So they're not a big masonry installation?
No,
it's
no.
just plastic.
No.
You can pick them up and throw them out.
Yeah, you can easily put 4 of them in the back of an SUV.
Understood. Okay.
So they're designed to dissipate runoff before it discharges into the wetlands, because 7 of these lots are going to be discharging directly to the wetlands to the east and to the north, and lots 8 and 9 are going to ultimately flow towards the roadway here. Our overall stormwater assessment, hydrologic analysis, has considered lots 8 and 9 flowing onto the street. But nonetheless, as a conservative measure, we're also providing these stormwater swales and leaching basins just for the individual houses. Now, we're not, the note down below basically says that these stormwater swales and roof runoff basins are just conceptual only. They're not set in stone like the road is and the stormwater controls for the roadway. We're just simply offering some guidance on where they might be. It might be worth conditioning this project to have maybe Brent, the Conservation Commission, have an administrative approval for each house, just to make sure that there's some compliance. So that's what the note describes, is that the individual houses, the driveways, and the leaching chambers might be subject to administrative approval from either the Planning Board or the Conservation Commission. So that's addressing one of Larry's 5 concerns that I want to talk about tonight. Does anyone have any questions about, how the houses are located or the driveways?
Well, only to the extent that when we talked about that previously, there was some discussion about a no clearing line. And it seems like it's almost what you're addressing here. Is there a no clearing line on here?
We don't have a tree line specified in there, but that's another thing we could add.
Okay.
David, do you think that's a worthwhile exercise, putting a tree line in there?
I do.
Okay. We'll go ahead and make that change then. So what we'll do is we'll propose the areas of where clearing will take place on these 2 sheets as well. So the second issue I want to bring up based on Larry's letter is the increased detail. He was looking for some increased detail from the 40 scale plan. So we've provided 2 20 scale sheets, and they're on the stormwater management plans. I think they might be C8 and C9 maybe. No, I'll take it back. These sheets here, C6 and C7 are 20 scale. But the benefit, is it possible to go back to the prior sheet here, C6? On sheet C6, one of the benefits of the increased detail is to see what's going on at the intersection with Daniels Road. We're proposing to cut out 125 feet of Daniels Road and replace it with new pavement, but prior to doing that, to regrade the shoulder on the opposite side of the road and get that more stable and improve sight lines. We talked about that on a site visit, Chris and Troy.
Yes.
And it might also help with snow removal, pushing snow and whatnot. With the changes, we're going to be moving one pole, which the selectmen have approved. We're going to be moving pole 13 to the east. We're going to be moving pole 12 across the street. With those utility pole revision changes, and also we need to connect to natural gas on the other side of the street as well as water. The street's going to be opened anyway. It's a great opportunity to improve sight lines, put fresh pavement down. So
How much of the right-of-way exists on the opposite side of the street? Is there much room to work with in the right-of-way?
Into the banking.
Into the bank, yeah.
Into the bank, there's approximately 15 feet.
Oh, okay.
This is
So
a
much more than I-
Yeah, it's a good distance. It goes up pretty well. And Stephanie Camo is the property owner there who I've spoken with, and she's very willing and workable and amenable to doing this work here. We think it's going to be a great benefit to the intersection. It certainly will improve the first part of the reverse curve. It's the second part of the reverse curve that's really tight. I don't have to tell you, Mr. Chairman, how often you probably...
Yeah, just repeated travel.
Yeah.
I mean, but your point, there's never been an accident. I think, I don't know if it's just because people know what they're doing or what. But
Yeah, there have actually been a couple of accidents on record that Mass DOT has reported.
That's right, I think you might have brought those to our attention.
Yeah, it
but,
wasn't a database. So anyway.
Is there still, talking about an island at the entrance and
Yeah,
listen?
we've eliminated the island. Yeah, we got rid of both islands.
Okay.
We were getting a lot of feedback from Patrick and Chief Jim Broderick at the fire department.
It'll be up and over.
Yeah, it just, given the tight curve coming in here, I mean, it was easy for them to get in, but the problem is getting out. So, maybe at some point we can come up with some landscaping features that might, add some more value there.
Is there any signage to, either coming
Yes.
in either direction that we might want to consider?
Yep. On the last sheet, C15, there's a pavement striping and signage detail that shows where we're proposing signs. And, one of the signs that exists right now, for instance, is an ASHO in the upper, or lower left-hand corner. Okay, Mr. Chairman. Okay. Lower left-hand corner, you'll see a
Wrong way.
yeah, you'll see that there's a wrong way sign there. Kirk's almost there.
Are you thinking anything off-site? No?
Well, and I guess
Like an
that's...
approach?
Yeah, we do have something off-site, right.
Okay.
So we've got an alignment warning sign here.
Yeah.
So you're coming down Daniels Road. If you're coming too fast at nighttime and you don't see anything, there's going to be a bright arrow there. And we're putting a second alignment warning sign here because we don't want people coming into the street. So there'll be 2 alignment warning signs following the ASHTO, American Society of State Highway Transportation Officials. We're following their guidelines for signage, but the other thing is there'll be a street sign right here, and then a stop sign as you're coming out with a stop line, making sure people stop. So there'll be a speed limit sign as you come in, wrong way, because this is the one-way loop here, and then if you're coming back out, we don't want people taking a right on the wrong way as well. So that's our proposed signage and striping for the road.
Is there going to be a name for this neighborhood?
Yes,
So you're going to have a sign?
yes, absolutely. A street sign. Street sign's proposed right here.
You know the-
Any
you know the name?
common sign? Like, you could put a common landmark sign?
On the ground, you mean?
Yeah.
We don't have anything proposed yet, but our landscape architect might come up with something, but we don't, right now it's just a street sign.
Not, I guess, for a question.
Just a street sign?
Yeah,
No name for the neighborhood?
not yet. We might.
You're going to build value if you get a name.
Absolutely. Name and logo, right, David?
Right.
Well, you got a real estate broker here. He'll tell you
Yeah.
who builds value.
Yeah.
It helps. It
Yeah.
helps.
Of course, if you pick a bad name,
Right.
Name it Palm
it goes
Beach.
down,
Right. Right.
right?
This is true.
So,
Just don't name it after 6 relatives and use 3 letters.
right.
You got a couple of those in town.
Okay. So, anyone have any questions about the sign? edge or the detail, the intersection with Daniels Road.
We'll wait for Larry.
Third thing is the shared septic system that Larry brought up in paragraph 10. We have met, I've met with the Board of Health, and we'll be submitting a full set of shared septic design plans that the planning board will receive, if not next week, then the week after. The plans do show sewer crossing detail. I think it's on sheet C14, Kirk. And what we're doing there is, there's 3 sewage easements that we're showing for the roadway. Yep, that's it right there, Kirk. There's a sewer pipe and crossing detail at those 3 sewer easements. So what we're proposing is a 12-inch HDPE pipe encased in concrete, and there'll either be an 8-inch SDR 35 sewer pipe running by gravity inside that sleeve, or a 2-inch HDPE force line, depending on how gravity works for the sewage. So again, those plans will be submitted to the Board of Health, and the Planning Board will get a full copy and full communication, including homeowners' covenants and legal documents that Title V required for shared septic systems.
Along with that, homeowners association and Title V maintenance agreement it seems like this infrastructure is private and owned by the homeowners association, so an operator's maintenance plan.
Absolutely. O&M plan is a big part of shared septic system. Yeah.
Okay, and you'd also, knowing this is a totally different system, but as part of the HOA's responsibility.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what Title V requires. You have a number of projects in town, condo associations, and they follow those guidelines. It's not that much different than a condo association.
Yeah, I guess you're right. It's the crossing that maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe think was, but you're right. It's part of the same system. It's the septic.
Yep. But it will be underneath. It'll be crossing the public way, so it will be a private benefit underneath the public way. And for that reason, we don't ever want to have to dig up the public way. That's why we're encasing it in concrete the way we are. Let's see, that was number 4. Number 5 is, and the last thing is public access. This has become an issue. We're creating 14 acres of open space. I think on sheet C2, Kirk. We've got public access that's to a 14-acre open space area. Actually, you know what? If you go, it might even be C3 or C4.
C3.
Try C4. There we go. Yeah. So on C4, we've got our conservation access plan. And one of the things that we've done is we're proposing a trail down to the edge of the wetlands. And then we're proposing a 4-foot wide boardwalk. The detail for that boardwalk is on the last sheet, C15. You don't have to go there, Kurt, but you'll actually see the detail. It's an aluminum structure. It's an aluminum frame boardwalk with perforated polyethylene decking to allow light through. And what we're going to do is suspend those with composite piles across the wetlands to allow pedestrians to walk across that wetland resource into this 14 acres of open space. The issue that's come up is, can we get public access to the 4-acre parcel that the town owns? Talked with Bruce Tompkins, and he's not of the mind to be granting that right now. He has given Brent continuous authority to use that. I mean, all Brent has to do is call up and ask to get over there. But ultimately, and we're talking about a 300-foot section here, and it's a 4-acre parcel. I'd be glad to walk it with anyone. Bruce would be more than willing to allow us to get back there, which I've done with Brent. But the bigger picture here is something that we talked about initially, was just how this particular project fits in the big scheme of things with land development between Cable Street and Weathersfield Street. That includes the Falcon Ridge project, it includes the Herrick project, this project, ultimately the build out of the Ricker property, the Rickier property on Haverhill Street. All of those parcels will soon be coming together. It's inevitable. The market is just, it's too strong for these parcels to lay dormant like they have been. So ultimately, access will be provided from either from the south, across the Tompkins property, or from the east, across Rickier's property. And what it will ultimately do is I think you've seen we were looking at some wetland crossing alternatives at one time late last year. We were looking at 3 different wetland alternatives. Ultimately, the best option, like I've talked to you about, is coming through the Ricker and Rickier property because there's 0 wetland impacts. And that would really be the best solution, is to come in off of Daniels Road in here and to get back and connect up to Falcon Ridge and Herrick that way. And so when that happens, then all of this, there will be a comprehensive conservation plan that will tie all of that together. So,
You know, I don't think the lack of, at least from my own perspective, the lack of that additional access, which was gonna be a license only, it wasn't gonna be a deeded right of way, because we didn't know where it would ultimately end up. That itself doesn't seem like a fatal detraction from what
it's
we're
only
otherwise
4
doing.
acres. I mean,
Well, the thing is,
Well-
4 acres that no one's ever been to, and
Right.
there's nothing on it.
Right.
And it probably is not best used for conservation or recreation.
It's
better
extremely,
used- Better used for residential.
It could be, it could be. I mean, but you know what it begs for, David, is it just, again, a big comprehensive master plan,
It
right?
does, absolutely.
It begs for, let's look at the topography, let's look at the resources, let's evaluate the forest.
And
you
to the
know?
extent that
You
we
may
we're
have a
looking for that.
value as a,
Yeah.
an OSRD, and it's affordable scattered throughout the development somehow,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
I don't-
Yeah. What's interesting about it that Brent and I have observed is that the Tompkins family has allowed cutting of the forest in through here. It's Chapter 61A forest land. So there has been cutting of the forest in through here. And what's happened is that this 4 acres has remained uncut. And it's almost like a pristine jewel in the middle, despite the fact that you can see the topography. I mean, there's some steep topography and bedrock outcrops there. So it's really not suited for like a play field or anything like that. But it's an interesting ecological habitat, you know, but it's only 4 acres, and there's a lot bigger fish to put together, you know, the big plan.
Yeah, and that last 300 foot of pathway to get to it probably isn't gonna, like I said, isn't gonna make or break what we're trying to do here.
I hope not.
Yeah. Good.
So I don't know if Larry has anything, I mean, I threw this on Larry at the last minute, and I don't know if there's any questions that Larry has. Well, does the board have any questions about anything that I've presented so far?
Well, we wait for Larry's comments.
I think but you know, you seem to address the things that he brought up most recently. Let's see what he comes back with.
Yeah.
But before we leave it at that, I believe he's here in one of these microphones somewhere.
Hey, Larry?
Come here.
So, after hearing Mr. DeCoulis's comments on the plans that you just submitted, you have anything you want to say or comments at this point, or do you want to just hold off until you've had a better opportunity to review?
Well, as was mentioned, I did just get them yesterday or day before, so I did have a chance only this afternoon to peruse through them. But I will mention a couple of things that have pretty much all of them been touched on tonight. So as I see it, the planning board doesn't feel that that 4 acre access to 4 acres is a deal killer or a big deal. So we'll scratch that off the list. I think the board wanted more detail, I believe, and I think it would be appropriate of the bridge crossing as well as a profile. I think they were mentioned at the last meeting. So I believe that detail on C-15 is all you see right now. So I will raise that in my review as to whether or not the board feels that's adequate. I don't know how since these houses are going to be fairly close to the road, I don't know how the board feels about the front-facing garages. About half of those schematic houses are shown with front-facing garages. And I know those are just generic houses, but it might be something the board wants to consider whether or not you want to have any condition with respect to that. You mentioned the clearing limits. I had that as checked off on my list because something we talked about in previous meetings is still lacking on the plans. It was mentioned, and I think it might be a good idea. I've done it in other towns. I can't recall if we've ever done it in Raleigh, but what we've had before with the Georgetown Planning Board in particular is individual lot site plan reviews, so that the planning board as well as myself would get a chance at looking at grading and particularly drainage. And that's where we would look a little bit closer at the proposed Caltex here and the roof drainage and the driveway drainage. So as Jim, I think, has done, he's responded to the previous comment, but at this point that would just be something that's generic and conceptual, and unless you put it into a further requirement such as individual lot site plan reviews and as-built situations, you're not going to get anything other than what that individual lot developer wants to do. That is about it. I didn't see any on the intersection detail. I like what I see so far. I presume the Raleigh Light Department's on board with moving those 2 poles. I didn't see any sight distances from the intersection, although I think they're pretty good. I don't think it's really necessary to have the sight distance across where they're proposing to improve on the inside of that curve, because any improvement will make it better. And I think that's it. Again, I've just perused the plans as well as the stormwater management report, and it'll take me a few weeks to get a report back to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Corse, it sounds like what Larry was just discussing is something you brushed on earlier, which is the individual lot site plan review. You mentioned it for in terms of stormwater management, but do you feel would it be all right if we went as broad as Larry proposed?
Yeah, that would be fine. I mean, I'm just trying to reduce burden on the board too. I mean, is there some way to just maybe push that off to the Conservation Commission? I mean,
well,
that's fine. I mean, I don't mind.
You know, the thing is, as Larry mentioned, we haven't done it before, so it's not, but it's worked in other communities, and you've suggested you might be willing to submit to it, so as long as you don't think it is too much of a burden, then
No.
I think we would.
Is that a review, like public hearing?
No, I think, Larry, in your assessment, we're talking about something where
Administrative?
some sort of administrative clearance before.
Yeah. The way we've handled it before is it's submitted to the board, which is then submitted to.
Vegetation, Larry?
I'm sorry.
That would also possibly reviewing the clearing of the lot.
Well, if there's a clearing limit, if you will, that's going to appear on the plans, then it would be, of course, would carry over to the individual lot site plan.
How, I know that the Conservation Commission wants to exert jurisdiction too. Is there any way we could create a concurrent review between the Planning Board and Conservation Commission? Could it possibly address both jurisdictions or both? Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
there's a lot of overlap there.
quite often, has piggybacked on our reviews for the planning board.
Yeah.
So I would think we could work that out for sure.
Okay. Because, I mean, there's some overlap when it comes to the delineation of the clearing line, because obviously Brett has some concerns there, and
We're within the buffer zone in many of these clears.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and yet things like, could you turn the garage so that it's not facing the street, something that's more in the planning board purview. So we certainly consider any proposal you'd make to try to, you know, unify
Okay.
the process.
All right, so I'll suggest something, maybe Kirk and I can work on some language, and I, you know, talk to Larry too about it.
Because it's not gonna be a public hearing in
Right.
every instance, and it's
Right.
not gonna be needing the boards to approve. You need the technical review agents stamp to approve.
It sounds like only if there's a butting of heads that it would get to be a public hearing.
Right.
Like, maybe we can work it out where,
Kind of a mini administrative, like where you submitted like three plans, I'll keep one will go to Larry, and then one will go to
Brent,
Brent,
yep.
and then you report back
yeah,
to the board.
yeah.
We'll figure that out. It'll be
Yeah.
like, and give a, you know, 7 or 14-day reply period, so that, because the truth is, after 14 days, you don't want to wait around anymore. You need to
Yeah.
have a pocket approval.
Well, that's pretty tight, Larry, for you, isn't it? Well, maybe we'll do 21 days.
Depends
something
how
like
many
that.
you come in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be nice, 15 or 20 days, but that's plenty of time
Yeah.
for each lot.
It's a single lot review as
Yeah,
opposed
yeah,
to,
yeah,
It could be more than one lot at a time, I bet.
Yeah. yeah.
but I want to give you the deadline so that if we don't act on it, you're not held up. in what
That's
you
right,
need
that
to
would be
do.
great. That would be great to have constructive approval.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, well, good, that's.
Okay, and just one last point, Larry brought up the light department. I've been working closely with Mark Anderson, and he and I actually, together with another one of his staff members, we were out there actually identifying the location of these pole relocations. And it was with the coordinated effort with Mark that I went before, or he actually presented the application to the selectmen, who approved the relocation already. So the selectmen have reviewed and approved those pole relocations along Daniels Road.
And then everything in there is underground, right?
Yep, and then so from one of the new pole relocation, I think it's 13 here, it goes underground, and then everything's along the shoulder. You know, what I forgot to give you is, there was a presentation that I presented today, actually a letter, and I'm sorry, this won't be much longer, but this is a cross-section at the end of the main road. Larry, this was something that I put in the package that I got to you today, too. This is a cross-section at the end of the main road, and what this shows is what the utilities underneath the road, at the very end of the main road, which is Station 7 plus 78, what they look like. And you can see that the electrical and communication conduits are on the left side, underneath the shoulder of the road. But more importantly, the reason why I brought this up, and the information that I presented. Kirk, were you able to present that Caltech letter that I also got? Did you get that to the board? That was a letter that I sent this
I don't
morning.
think I pursued, I didn't
Print it out?
put it, I didn't
Yeah.
forward everything, not
Okay.
that came today.
Yeah, I printed that out for Larry as well. But the purpose of it, I mean, one of the issues that I don't think the board has seen before, that you see in this cross-section, is these large Caltech units. These are 902 units, they're 4 feet high, being proposed underneath the public way. And so you can see that they're at the very end of the road, and you can see it in, I think on sheet C7 as well, just exactly how they're oriented.
C5's got it too.
C5's got it too. But you can see how these Caltech chambers, what we're doing with stormwater control for the roadway is we're discharging and infiltrating stormwater underneath the public way. And for that reason, I wanted to get technical support documentation from Caltech. They've also had a third-party independent engineer review for the strength of these units, making sure that they can adequately support the heaviest equipment that the town is going to have. Again, it's a little unusual, but the reason why we're doing this is to limit the deforestation of this project. You know, we don't want to just go in and clear cut it. As much as the low-impact development stormwater practices are being proposed and really being pushed, in a heavy forest environment like this, it involves clear cutting a lot of area. And so what we're doing is we're taking advantage of the cutting of a swath of forest for a roadway, and we're putting the stormwater controls underneath that. So, you know, again, you can see that these 3 specific chamber roads are halfway under the road as well as underneath the proposed sidewalk. And they're being proposed with an adequate cover to support HS20 loading, and the documentation that I provided to Kirk and to Larry today, which I think you can probably just forward it to the board if anyone's interested, but, you know, we use these a lot under heavy parking lots. I'm working on a gas station reconstruction right now in Norwood where we're putting fiberglass tanks. We're storing 10,000 gallons of gasoline in fiberglass tanks. And heavy trucks and diesel trucks are driving over them. Plastic is being used in a lot of interesting ways. It's not sustainable, but it's strong, enduring, and it doesn't corrode. So, what's that?
We do a ton of changes.
Yeah, I mean,
on the parking lots, every parking lot we do now has changes.
Are you using a lot of plastic, Troy?
Yeah, we use the Caltex.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Caltex, the great thing about them is that they're available. Originally, we proposed the StormTech units, and they're having a hard time with manufacturing right now, so Caltex are more widely available right now. We feel as though that this proposal to direct stormwater underneath the roadway is one that's environmentally sensitive.
I'm glad you pointed all that out. It sounds like what you're saying is, had you not went with this solution, you'd be ripping up some other portion of the, what could otherwise be undisturbed.
So the only issue with them is they need to be maintained.
Right.
They need to be inspected and maintained. And the problem is, they're always not,
So what we've done to address Larry's concern is, Kurt, would you mind zooming in on C7 again? I'm sorry.
And I'm not jumping, that's really what I was thinking, you know, we're talking about the HOA and then maintaining the sewer easements or the equipment under those sewer easements as part of
Homeowners.
Title V.
Yeah, in Title V. This is stormwater. This is separate. This is going to be highway.
This is not, okay, gotcha. So this is, we can't shift this burden to the HOA.
We could, but it is going to be under the public right of way. You know, it is going to be.
I don't see highway keeping up with it.
Well, what we could do is have a fallback with the HOA. You know, we could develop some mechanism like
Because
that.
technically, they're supposed to be inspected once a year, correct?
Yeah.
There's a log book. I know it never happens.
No,
Nobody ever does it.
It's in the back of the stormwater management plan, the O&M log book, the O&M log schedule. What we've done here is we've got cast iron frame and grates. We've got 4 sets of inspection ports, cast iron frame and grates over the chambers, each row. But more importantly, what we've proposed is a new CDS Contec oil grit separator to make sure that there's no, I mean, we've got 4-foot sumps, we've got 4.5-foot sumps that are going to get cleaned. There's a lot of redundancy in this O&M schedule. The highway department definitely is going to clean the sumps. And then if they get past a 4-foot sump grit sediment, then it's still going to get through the Contec chamber. So there's a lot of safeguards built in. But even if, you know, there's a need to check the cast iron frame and grates, we've got 12 of them proposed, 4 for each row, and they'll be readily, you know, observable, and if necessary, they can be factored out. But I don't, quite frankly, I don't ever see it happening. I think there's going to be enough control and cleaning of just the sumps. Will take care of it. I think the bigger issue is going to be maintaining that oil grit separator. You know, like there's 2 of them being proposed that Larry had suggested. There's one up here at Infiltration Chamber System 2, and then there's a second one here down at Infiltration System 3. Following the Contec requirements for O&M, operation and maintenance.
So I don't know how Raleigh handles cleaning RCBs. Do we have vac trucks? Do we have clamshells? I mean,
Everything gets subbed out, Troy.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, whoever's sucking the catch basins could possibly do the.
Well, they'll be using the clamshells for the catch basins, right? And the Contex will require a vacuum.
That's what I mean. So if
Yeah.
you're doing those, you might as well do the catch basin. I mean, it's something you're gonna.
But it seems like where this is infrastructure that benefits the homeowners, maybe the HOA should be responsible for the O&M on it.
Yeah,
too.
I don't see a problem with that. I think it might be a good idea, because Patrick is limited. You know, Patrick Snow with the highway department, he's only got, what, 5 people on his staff? You know, he's out there, he's got a contract every year to get clamshell cleaning of the sumps, you know, and they're gonna whip down the road and get the clamshell in and put it into the truck. but they're not gonna be out there inspecting with the flashlight, you know, making sure that all the mechanisms of the oil grit separator are working properly. So I don't see a problem with that. I think that would be a good safeguard.
Yeah, and especially it's a public way if the town's gonna be doing those, you just mentioned, but the first the bin, then maybe it'll limit what they ultimately have to do and the frequency in which they have to do it.
Yep.
All right, well, good, again, if we could incorporate that into, you know, whatever the proposed, you know, homeowner association docs are.
Yep, that'd be fine.
I'm gonna jump in here if I can.
Yes.
Chris, I did mention this, the oil and sediment separators. I wasn't specifically thinking of what's been proposed, the context, which are probably better than what I was thinking about, but they also present this problem of maintenance, where you have to have a back truck to clean them, as opposed to the type of equipment that will clean all the catch basins that the town operates. So, and I know these things are better than a 3-compartment tank, but I think if you had, Jim, maybe consideration might be given to a 3-compartment, a shade type oil and sediment separator, 1,500 or 2,000 gallon, depending on the area that it's picking up, of course. And that would solve the problem of having the HOA or the town having to get a back truck and engage a back truck, and HOA paying back the town to do it, or however that's might be administered. The town could clean the more simple 3-compartment tanks. So it might be something to think about, and I'll give some more thought to that and include it in my review.
Thank you.
Thanks.
If there are any other examples in town where this is being done, like in this way, as I was wondering, is this going to present any kind of a problem when it comes to street acceptance? Is there going to be any issues that we might?
Well, they can reserve the easement for the installation and maintenance, and because they're responsible for the maintenance, they
Yeah.
can certainly have the, you know, the burden to the HOA.
Yeah, that would be a way to do it, have an easement to the homeowners association.
Right.
Just as long as they.
Yeah, yeah, long-term obligation for maintenance.
But like Jim says, I haven't witnessed tearing out a Caltech infiltration system or SwarmTech, whatever is put in. If you open those inspection ports and see a lot of sediment buildup, you've failed because you haven't been cleaning the components that are upstream. And you might be successful in vacuuming them out and getting a little more longevity, but you've got to stop it at the catch basins and an oil and sediment separator prior to the stormwater getting into there. So that's the most important thing that, you know, we have to do.
All right. Well,
It's not the best place for them in the road, but you know, 25 years down the road, if the upstream components are not maintained and they plug up, then you're going to get the overflow that you don't want, and your only choice is to tear the road up and replace it.
not a good choice.
No, but it can be avoided. It can be avoided with good components and proper maintenance.
Yep, that's why there's a schedule in the last appendix of the stormwater plan, specifically for that. Clearly, operation and maintenance is going to be the key to avoiding that crisis that Larry just described.
Okay, well, and then if that's the case, then whatever operation and maintenance schedule we come up with, just some kind of reporting requirement back to the planning board that
Yep.
they've completed it on a time, you know, on a recurring basis.
On an annual basis,
Yeah.
maybe?
If that's what's recommended, it might be
Yeah.
inspections every 2 years. I don't want to
Yeah,
overburden.
yeah. But even if it's just a letter for
Yeah.
the planning board's record, right?
Well, yeah, because I've seen plenty of instances where the HOA has only the stormwater management and they've never constituted the HOA and no one's ever paid it and they've never maintained it, you know, and and yet the planning board isn't enforcing it either. You know, so if we can avoid
And then
that.
it's a lot, yeah, what you're referring to, Chris, is a lot different because most of our systems are, you know, catch basins primarily, just going out to,
Swales, right.
a detention, the retention or an infiltration basin that's open, and then we can all see when the thing's filling up, and, you know, if the HOA hasn't taken care of it, or whoever's in charge of taking care of it hasn't, then it's a little easier to go in and remove that sediment and put some more life into it. Totally different when you have subsurface structures like this, particularly under the road, so
Right.
it's hugely, gonna be hugely important to have that tied down well and to manage it and monitor it.
Well, good, I'm glad we're having this conversation then, because, you know, even with that requirement that they report to the planning board each year, we have to have the planning board know to be looking for it too, because that's something that if the planning board's not confirming that they got it, then 5 years could go by.
But I think that brings up the reason why the HOA, putting obligations on the HOA is even more important, right? Because they take some of that stress off of the board, the burden on the board.
And the Title V burden is significant, they can't ignore it. They're gonna have to be paying attention to that on a recurring basis.
Yeah.
So hopefully they'll be looking at the whole mandate. All right.
On that note, Jim, just a question to you. What does Comtech say the CDS, the separator unit, is good for TSS removal?
I think it was 80%, Larry.
80.
Yeah.
And on your, I noticed on your TSS worksheet, you only, you know, because it's in the program, you only take credit for 25%. So, but you get that credit 25% with a simple 3-compartment tank as well. Again, I think the contact unit is better than the 3-compartment tank. But if it doesn't get maintained, but the 3-compartment tank dies, you're ahead. So.
You think about it.
Okay, I'll propose something
Yeah.
with the homeowners
To be
association.
continued. Yeah, to be continued on that.
Yeah, okay, great.
Anything else, Mr. Graham?
I don't think so. Chris, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Okay, then if that's okay, anyone here have any comments on this Danielsville project? With that said,
Make a motion to continue to our next scheduled meeting.
Kirk, I owe you a letter.
so David's
Yeah.
motion to continue,
Tomorrow.
Jack's second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So the motion carries. See you at the August 11th meeting?
Yes,
Very good.
absolutely.
Can you also get it, he's gonna send a letter, we need to.
Yeah, I gotta request extension.
An
Yeah.
extension before the end of this month, but we may be, I guess we'll be discussing whether there's another meeting, but,
Yeah, we have,
I'll shoot for the end of September.
we can do that without a meeting anyhow.
Yeah.
We need
Yeah.
signatures, or at least.
but just that we need to extend the time, the definitive subdivision time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I assent to the continuation.
Okay,
All right, good. Well-
You guys may want to accept, I guess, he's gonna send a letter confirming it, but, take a vote to accept.
Oh, okay.
A motion to accept it.
So I'll also ask the board to vote to accept the request by the applicant to continue the time, or make a decision on his definitive subdivision plan submittal.
Second.
So my motion, Troy second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so motion carries, and hopefully we'll have this wrapped up before that deadline.
Yes, absolutely, great. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right. All right, so next item is a continued public hearing site plan review application submitted by Elmer Valencia pertaining to the operation of a landscape contract and tree removal operation with open storage, related supplies, equipment, or vehicles or structures for storing such items. The subject property consists of 3.87 acres, is located off Newburyport Turnpike, Raleigh, Massachusetts, identified as map 14, lot 22-3, and located in the business light industrial zoning district. So, evening, how are you?
Good, how are you? Nick
Good.
Betts for the record, from Meridian Associates, representing Elmer Valencia. This is really just a continuation of the conversation we had on site about
Right.
the phased approach for the project. If you want to start with The peer review has some comments, if you want to go through those first, I'm going to talk about the phase approach.
Yeah.
I do owe you a letter with our responses to those.
And I don't want to, take us in a different direction now, but I do think after that meeting, we kind of looked into a few different interpretations of what you're proposing out there.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think you and Kirk might have already had those conversations, right?
I think we were just discussing.
Yeah, we just
today that-
discussed the construction trail on site is something that the zoning board approved, or is. would be
Well, I mean,
approvable.
it seems like, I know we were all there, and we were talking about the idea of phasing the site with first working on the parking and the layout and the drainage and the septic as part of the phase one. However, having a master plan all along that shows where eventually phase two, which would be more detailed, probably, more building and structure, more development as phase two. I think we're looking at the ordinance, we really need a development consisting of a structure, and all the parking, roadway, storage, drainage is accessory to that primary use. But I don't know that we can get to a review that accessory parking if we don't start with reviewing a building site.
And the reason being was it depends how I think we propose this to the board, but under the business light industry district, this use is considered offices for general construction. So it says in the bylaw, it says offices for general construction, landscaping, and similar contractors with open storage and related supplies. So it's assuming
The office is the
office.
use.
Yeah, is the use, is the primary use.
But they use which is mainly stove for equipment.
But the site plan obligation contemplates that we're reviewing the development of a building and the site that it serves,
Because of the word office.
because of the word office.
Yeah.
And without that office use, we don't really have a site to review.
You don't have a use.
We don't have a use, right? I'm sorry, we don't have a use to
You
review.
have an accessory use, but not a primary, not the primary.
Right. So I think one thing we have to consider is whether we could look at a plan that has the site development as phase one and the building as phase two, but can we do that without, can you start with a phase that doesn't include?
Well, you can't design a septic without a building. I
Yeah.
mean, So you need some sort of structure to move forward with septic, in drainage.
At least design.
Yeah, so-
Can we give them a permit to operate the site, short of having it developed?
My concern is it doesn't look like one contractor there, it looks like half a dozen contractors. And there's equipment all over the place.
Mostly tree guy.
It's just a tree company. He has various trucks and cranes and things like that, but it's just one.
I'm afraid it's gonna look like just
Well-
as bad without the building.
Well, the one thing that I did hear from, in discussing it, this applicant is bringing to us the opportunity to improve the site over what's been neglected for a good long time.
Greatly improved, yes.
Yeah, so for that reason, the town should certainly consider it, but
Well, the fear is, if you do a little bit of work and then the tree company goes under and then it's another neglected site with no building on it, is the fear, I think. right?
that's certainly one. And the other thing that I think is a concern is that the town has an interest in seeing this site develop to its fullest and best use so that it can generate as much tax revenue out of it. And to allow an owner to underdevelop a site, to basically operate his business on the cheap, is denying the town the potential to have that additional tax revenue and probably not consistent with our objective.
And the best use of the land.
Well, because it's not certain. So, we've always said we want to try to be business friendly and not try to get in your way here, but you got to develop a building.
Yeah, so I think in the first phase of the plans, we had two buildings proposed. One is the prefab storage building, which is a lot cheaper than having an architect design your brick and mortar building. So if the board would allow the prefab building to be installed as part of this first phase, the site work still has to happen first regardless of.
So as long as you demonstrate there's a small aspect of the office in that building, I think you're fine. You're just
Yeah.
gonna need a bathroom.
Exactly, so,
Right.
so as far as the bathroom goes, the septic system right now where it's gonna be located is under 25 feet of fill, so in the time being, it would be, obviously, porta potties would be on site. When the storage building is put up, it's not gonna have plumbing or anything, so do the porta potties still constitute as the bathroom for that office use of that building?
Well, your construction could be up to 2 years is the permit, so you got 2 years to get the septic in
You
there.
get 2 years to get the septic, so until he does the earthwork and grading, we can't even,
But can we give him a conditional approval to, or can we give him an as-built, can we give him an approval?
Well, I mean.
If he's got a building that doesn't have plumbing?
Well, if you wanted to do it in phases, like if you wanted to make the installation of the road and the bins and the laydown area for the trucks, as phase one, and then, I mean, you'd have to condition it such that you wouldn't, the
Right, well, you
town
could do the
doesn't-
footprint of the building with plumbing in the building and just not occupy the building right away.
Yeah,
It's just,
but
I don't
you
know how.
don't wanna run into a situation where there ends up not being a building,
Correct.
you know, so that's the risk you take by phasing it.
Right. I mean,
you could solve the building part of it, you could solve. It doesn't have to be big.
Well, that was my thought. You could do a small building with a small septic system and get away with it. And then if you expanded, you just save that area for a bigger septic system. But I mean, I can't, that's something that's gonna be designed.
Or you could make a proposal for an alternate septic system.
Correct.
but
But you gotta have a building.
I think we have to have a building, and I think once we get that building, it's hard for the board to say we can't work with you towards an approval. As long as you don't have a building, I don't see how we can. But I think, the small building, I suppose we have to. But I still think the town has an interest in making sure that the site is fully developed to its best potential,
Yeah.
so that we can.
so that's, I mean, the applicant's spent a ton of money to buy the site, so that's certainly his best interest to do that as well.
Sure.
So if the prefab metal building will constitute as the building for that phase one,
Mhm.
is that something that's, can be approved with the condition that the second building will be built?
And I think that's,
A timely manner, we could set the time.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking
If you set a
too.
time frame on that, then that's certainly something we can work with. It's
yeah,
just-
because I think, the idea is you develop it, and continue to work the phases.
Right.
But if you stop at phase one, then, and in 3 years, we still don't see phase two
Ken was
development,
talking about some sort
then
of
we're
screening
potentially,
or something like
we
that.
need to have the ability to withdraw the permit to
Right,
operate.
right. So I mean, that's the plan of the applicant to develop the site. So if you condition it with a time frame for that actual building with the septic system, that's something we can work with at least. It gives them a starting point to start working on the site, otherwise it's just gonna sit there.
I think another first part of this thing too is screening landscaping so it just doesn't look so disheveled.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So actually, I pulled this right over my phone, but, so phase one approach was gonna be, obviously, we'll install all the erosion control to just keep the site protected. We do some clearing and grubbing, we do the grading, the earthwork, get the road kind of smoothed out leading down to that lower area, and then really he wants to focus on that lower area because that's where he's gonna wanna park the vehicles, make them out of sight from the road there. Put the storage bins in, so his logs and stuff he can keep down there, it's all out of sight. And then kind of work his way back up towards the road. And that way he would be ending with the prefab building, the pavement would be one of the last things to do. Obviously, the stormwater devices have to go in kind of now because there's some structures under the road, so we put in structures, dig out the basin where it's going. So all that would kind of be in place, and then it would just be a matter of, that space over there is where the permanent buildings go, or the main building's going. We have the structure, the storage building. It's still a fairly good-sized building. It looks just like the one across the street. And then kind of, that's part of phase one. Phase two would be get that other building up to par.
I mean, that seems like a more workable plan than not having the building. And I think the only thing that is even a question mark is the fact that it doesn't have full services like, sanitation services. And we can give you an occupancy permit if you don't have a working,
I don't think so, because the health department has to sign off.
Yeah,
so,
so,
I mean,
it's kind of like the health department has to approve the location of the septic, but we can't put the septic in not knowing if we can put a building in. Everything seems to be stuck behind something else. And so if we could at least start to move forward.
but even if we were to approve this, we'd have to say subject to the
Subject
Board
to
of
the
Health.
Board of Health, of
Yeah,
course, yeah.
yeah.
Because it's 90% of this is just earthwork to get the site where it needs to be for development. And if he's willing to do that up front as phase one, then we can move forward with the septic test pits, the perk tests, all that stuff.
You know, the thing is, he wants to operate the site while he's developing the site.
It's generating
So
revenue.
the problem is he's doing the right thing by letting us know, but if he just said, I'm the contractor on the site, he could have parked his stuff there anyways as he was building up the site. You know what I mean? He's been up
But
front with us.
usually develop a site and then they
Yeah.
occupy.
Right,
So
right.
we actually went to the Conservation Commission to get an approved activity use sketch outside of their jurisdictional areas where he could park his fleet of vehicles, which
Okay.
they approved because the previous lot he owned was being sold by the owner for development. So now he has 20 cars in a crane and needs to put them somewhere. And now he wants to park them in the lower spot, but he can't get down there because it's outside of the activity use area. So it's certainly a complicated endeavor.
We actually, Wayne is.
And Wayne's not here. I don't know if you want me to go through the engineering review comments, or I can submit the letter to you, but nothing major.
Why don't you go ahead and let Wayne reply?
Okay,
If that
certainly.
makes sense.
So kind of starting from the top, there was a question about the street line in the district. Is it the center of the road street line, or is it the right-of-way line? So I looked at Artistic Landscapes, which is, I think, 1 or 2 properties down. They use the center of the line. And I just took a measurement off of Google Earth. It's exactly 70 feet from the center of the road to the edge of the building. So therefore, it would be a 50-foot setback, which is traditional, and that's what this building is actually.
And that's what our ordinance requires, 50 foot.
50 foot,
Yeah.
right, with the screening, of course, so there'll be a landscape screening there. So our building's 51 feet, both the buildings are 51 feet. Lighting, there was no proposed site lighting because the business is like a 7 to 3:30, 4 o'clock ordeal. You can't cut trees down at night. Lighting that was proposed is going to be attached, affixed to the building, so that's kind of tied to the building there. Nothing major, no pole lights, no baller lights, no sign lights, nothing like that. There was a question about the separation from the basin to the seasonal high groundwater. So the plan that was approved back in 2004 or 7, I forget what it was, had an estimated seasonal high groundwater elevation 59. We did test pits in February, it was down to 56 and a half. So we were conservative, used the original 59, and our basin is set at 63, so we have a 4 feet of separation from groundwater. So we don't need to do a groundwater mounting analysis. The rainfall data was NOAA Atlas 14, which is what was recommended. And there are 2 test pits that were dug in the location of the basin. They're not exactly in the middle, but they're very close because we didn't know where the basin would be when we were digging them. ADA accessibility, it's not really a concern until we build that final building, but it's level with the building. It's just 1 curb up, so there's a curb ramp, there's a detail sheet. There will be a dumpster on site that gets emptied kind of on an as-needed basis. No gas service is being proposed to the site. We're not proposing any new fire hydrants. The fire department did review it. Their only comments were about the types of storage and materials that we have. There's nothing hazardous or anything. Wayne did ask to see a turning movement diagram of the vehicle, so we can provide that. And then the water and fire, domestic water and fire service size lines coming in are probably like an inch or an inch and a half coming off of the main and the road. That hasn't been fully vetted yet. There were 3 waivers. Obviously, the first one was the architecture, but it sounds like we have a plan moving forward with that. Waiver 2 was a landscape requirement, and I found this in your site plan review application. There's a section on landscaping that says that for every square foot of disturbance, you need to plant 2.8 trees, and that would be hundreds and hundreds of trees, and you'd have no site left. And then the septic approval is obviously the Board of Health, but that's hung up by the building, by the Board of Health, the test pits, the grading that site, so that's why I requested those 3 waivers. It's not, we're not trying to do it, it's just the time and manner of doing it, that's appropriate.
Well, Wayne, my biggest, I'm still trying to figure out how we could, approve a building without a septic.
Yeah, I'm struggling with this as well. I totally understand the predicament you guys are in, and I understand what the applicant's trying to do, and like Troy said, he's trying to do the right thing, and you guys are trying to help him, but it's very difficult to try to phase his proposed site plan. I mean, maybe the applicant can go back and come up with a phasing plan and specifically say, you know, this phase will be done first, this phase will be done second, this phase will be done third, and that way you maybe have something on record saying when site gets to a certain level of construction that requires a building or the use of a building, that's when it needs to get put up. It's something to think about. It's a predicament that I haven't seen before, so I'm not really, I don't have a lot of advice on how to proceed for the board here, because
I'm wondering if the reason we haven't seen it before is because it's prohibited.
it's possible that it is.
And what I'm saying is prohibited is the review without
About the building.
without the primary use
Yeah.
structure. You know, I don't want to recreate it or reinvent the wheel in terms of how we do this.
It's gotta be a
Well,
way.
wouldn't it be like when you go development, that they do the infrastructure first, before the first house goes up?
I mean, it's very much just a construction
Move in and
sequence,
build
you know,
down.
of the site.
Yeah, but I mean, still, the infrastructure's done first.
How long
do a
is
small-
how long is an
small
order of
building.
conditions good for? It's 2, 3 years.
Mr. Chairman, I can't recall honestly doing one site plan review in the past years that hasn't had some structure.
Right.
We just reviewed something in another town that had a phasing plan, but it really had to do with a phased building plan where phase one had a small structure, phase two, the structure got bigger, phase three, the structure got even bigger, and the parking got bigger, et cetera, but it was all contingent on phase one having, you know, an operational building to operate the business out of.
Yeah. And I think that's what we've done with Ipswich Bay Glass, in terms of approve the whole site, but understood that only portions of it would be developed initially.
Yeah, the issue is the approved building for the occupancy has to be tied to the septic, and we can't do the septic until we do some site grading, so it's, you're kind of, I understand what you're saying, you could do the grading and then have the building later on in the project.
Start off with a holding tank.
We'd have to do something
I have a
like that.
question for the board, and is there, I'm not totally familiar, is there an earth removal permit that maybe the applicant could get so that they could start moving earth around the site and start doing some preliminary grading without actually operating the business?
That's through conservation, correct?
It's actually through board of selection.
Okay. So that would be a separate permit to say you can
Yeah.
do earthwork, but you don't even have to have your site approved before
Yeah,
you do earthwork?
I probably need to send you that second, it's in the general bylaw, and there are certain parameters, thresholds that you meet, before it's required, but I'll send you that tomorrow.
So if I get
Maybe
that
that's an
approved,
approach. Sorry, maybe that's an approach that they can take and, you know, start regrading and doing work on the site to create the general topography that they're looking for, so that they can get at the septic and then put a building in, and then fully develop the site afterwards.
it sounds backwards to me, it sounds like I'm bypassing you guys to go develop the site.
Doing all that work out there? That's a good question.
They were screening
How
and moving
was it
material
they were
for
moving
5
material
years
before they had a
before.
building permit? At
Sotheby.
Sotheby at Pancake House.
He was grading that lot every
He
year.
wasn't removing material, he was
They're
grading
not
it.
removing, they were just
Bringing
grading.
it in.
Yeah.
But they stopped,
They were-
stopped him.
they stopped him in the
actually,
Yeah, because
when-
he came before us and then.
Yeah, but I think
There was-
he was doing it without any
Right, for
authority.
years, I
For
mean,
years.
there was a dozer and an excavator
Well,
out
he
there for,
he was building a hill,
is that what it was?
without permission, I guess.
I think he was. But I think, yeah, I think there is a way to go about it the right way in terms of dealing with the board. And it's not for earth removal, but I guess it's just for site,
I think it's an earth removal permit.
even if
But I
it's not
think
removal.
Well, that's, we're not removing it, we're just moving it.
But in that case, there might be something with the conservation land disturbance permit,
So that's anything over 20,000 square feet
but
requires.
this doesn't meet that.
Yeah, we've already actually triggered that because somebody trucked and filled the previous owner, so then they put us an enforcement order on us because we've exceeded the 20,000 square feet, so it's already under an enforcement order
Oh,
with the Conservation Commission because of the land disturbance permit.
oh.
So you
okay.
can't modify that land disturbance permit to incorporate some of the site work you want to do?
My understanding was that permit does not permit you to do any work, it just basically tells you that you tripped a threshold and then until you have it
Okay.
kind of rectified, you can't do anything.
That's
Yeah.
that's
It was, he issued a cease and desist, so it's, so the applicant doesn't want to start moving earth around and then have Brent run out there.
Well, then, we may be on the wrong, sending you down the wrong alley there with that. I mean, I don't know if that earth removal permit's gonna get you where you need to be in terms of.
Yeah, to me, it feels like we're bypassing everything you guys would be looking to do is permit the site as a whole rather than just doing some
I
grading.
think we would need it would be better if we had some sort of site.
So you put the footprint of the building in there, and
Yeah.
put your job trailer on the site from the Board of the Selectmen, and just say you're gonna have the septic done within 2 years. I mean, that's the way I would.
You have a.
But then we're still stuck with them using the building,
Who's
occupying.
Who's to say those trucks aren't safe trucks? Are you gonna go enforce it?
No, and I'm not, I'm just worried about,
Precedent?
well, enforcement, because we, if we grant somebody a permit and they just take advantage of what they want out of it, but don't complete the project, we need to be able to say you can't continue to operate that site.
Right.
Now, and yet we're trying to find ways to spoon feed you along so that you can get to the point where you can put that building on the site. And, I understand you need to operate it while you do it, but I just don't know if you can.
So if I submitted like a phased approach and I had it on the plans or on a separate letter that said by year 3, there'll be a foundation installed, and if not, you can.
I think you need the foundation to start, that's the issue.
But,
I think,
Some small building might cover the office.
That's what I
but
mean.
the building would have to be hooked up to the septic, otherwise it can't be
No,
occupied.
There may be a way to,
It's a decent
That's
sized site,
what-
you can't design a septic small enough,
You would do like a temporary septic system?
some sort of system that could
yeah,
take the crap.
your second phase could be eliminate that first septic system and have the septic system that supports whatever else you're doing.
I mean, could this be like putting an underground septic system in is probably a large expense similar to putting in a building, so could we do like an above ground tight tank or something like that?
If
It's all gonna be a septic
the
tie.
Board of Health would accept that.
That's why I said a holding tank gets pumped every month.
That's something.
I don't think it's
Then they'd
legal.
have to go
I don't
before
think
the
it's
Board of Health.
legal.
It's a
It's
suggestion.
illegal in town.
It's not, yeah, then we're just getting into all these like,
Right.
from the Board of Health.
You know, if everybody understands the reasoning and everybody's gonna live up to the time schedule, that's the biggest problem, is how do we enforce the time schedule?
Well, by denying them continued occupation of the site if they don't satisfy the benchmark.
Right, we said
The-
time frames.
the
that are
milestones,
agreed
yeah.
upon. Is that, might be a little unorthodox, but at least it gives you a path to move forward where we're not waiting for everyone to see what everyone else is gonna approve.
Yeah,
I mean, this could just be one of those tough situations where the planning board's prerogatives, I mean, the planning board's enforcement has no enforcement authority, but, ability to enforce only goes so far. I mean, even if the board asked the inspector, the building official to enforce after the fact, in the case that they weren't in compliance, I think he's actually said that he's okay with them actually operating,
in violation.
in violation.
Or not in
Not in
compliance.
violation, but
Yeah, no, I
basically using, having the storage area on the site even if it didn't have the.
Another
It
reason to
wouldn't
build the
prevent-
site is to get all that equipment down below, so the storage areas and the eyesore that
Yeah.
people are trying to avoid, so that lower lot is really the the bread and butter of this whole thing. And so until we can build that, get his vehicles down there, get his storage down there, the site kind of just sits in this limbo.
It might just be that you have to proceed and just take the risk.
That's my thought. I don't want to say that out loud, but.
Well,
A little
as well.
modular building there, and the holding tank would do them, yeah.
I think,
I think some
Did-
porta
did you
potties
get
and
the
a
whole thing
job site
approved?
trailer and.
I think you get the whole thing approved with the intention of building the building.
Correct.
And then you get the Board of Selectmen to give you the site trailer while that gets built. And then you say you're using that, the site trailer to supervise the
Site
development of the
trailer,
site.
then Just get a couple portable toilets.
Yeah, that's kind of what he has one out there now, and that's kind of what he wanted to do while he develops the site.
It's just,
It's then I have to.
you gotta keep the wheels turning and you gotta realize if nothing happens, it's gonna get shut down.
Right. That's put the risk back on the owner too.
Because the thing is, while you're developing the site, you're gonna be operating it as a construction yard for the purposes of your trucks coming in and going. And that's technically not something we've authorized, because we can't authorize the use of the site until it's built in compliance with the, so.
But who's to say
But
the
who's to say the structure is
servicing
developing the
you-
site?
Exactly,
So
so that's,
but at the end of 2 years, if you don't have a building,
everything's gonna shut down.
then you've not complied.
So it would be 2 years to construct the building, but I still would need to submit you architectural plans for the building as part of this application, which is what we're trying to avoid, because then we have to get an architect's involved.
Well, I mean, I can see, I can also see you coming back within 2 years asking for an amendment to
Yeah.
the site plan review or an extension to the time to complete the project.
Correct, yeah.
You know?
So is this an approvable thing that just have a sheet of conditions and a timeline agreed to? Is that something the board would be open to, or?
I think the first thing we're gonna do is see the whole site plan. And the whole site plan with phases, this is the proposed building, the proposed office, that's gonna be the first thing that we build. And then the proposed garage, which, it sounds like that's almost phase 3, because phase 1 is the site work and the lower
Phase
parking.
1 could be the site work, and then we could incorporate the prefab storage building into phase 1. And then phase 2 would be given time to get the architect, get the architectural plans, get that approved, and then phase 2 would be.
But phase 1, like you just said, would have that prefab building. We couldn't approve the whole project until that, not the whole project, but the phase 1 occupancy until that building is erected. But until that building is erected, you could probably operate the site as a construction yard
Yeah.
while you're doing,
My thinking is that if you get a temporary, small building without a foundation that built in a factory and plopped on the site, rest stop toilets outside of it.
Like a Reed's Ferry shed with some porta potties.
Yeah.
But that's the construction trailer that the Board of
The Board
Selectmen
of
has to
Selectmen
approve.
have to approve that.
Right.
It's a
Could be
construction,
a construction thing.
well, that's what they have to approve.
But at the end of 2 years, that construction trailer has to be removed because the Board of Selectmen is limited in how long you can approve them for. And if, when it's removed, we
Your
don't have.
office isn't ready.
Your office isn't ready, you can't use the site any longer.
Is this property under agreement to be purchased?
He purchased it.
He owns it?
He already owns it,
Okay.
yeah. The last owner was Universal Stone that had a construction trailer on site for 8 years, and that.
Owning
nothing.
it makes me feel,
Yeah, he owns it.
so he's not going anywhere.
No, he doesn't want to, he just wants to develop it and never deal with it again.
Well,
Just doesn't look very good.
It's an intimidating site to have a vision for, but.
I don't know, have we given you enough of an idea to work with him on coming up with a proposal that makes sense to him?
I mean, it sounds like I can modify my plans to say proposed future building location as part of phase 2, and then the prefab metal building becomes the proposed building for phase 1, and then somehow I document that there will be an on-site office space with porta potties as part of phase 1. And that gives me 2 years to get that building.
and then once we're done, you go to the Board of Selectmen and get that off-site trailer or on-site trailer approved
On-site
for the
trailer
duration of
approved for
the construction.
Right.
I mean, do you even have to show that on the plan, though?
Yeah.
The construction trailer, just, it's a construction trailer.
No, you, no, probably.
I wouldn't even, I'd show the proposed buildings phased out and just be aware that you're gonna need to get the septic. I know there's a big mountain of dirt, but if you don't have a septic, you don't have anything.
Right.
So,
So at least that was.
Yeah, I was actually,
Sorry, go ahead, Wayne.
I was actually gonna ask the same question that Troy did, where, if I remember right from the field visit, it sounded like the septic system had been approved under that 25,000 yards of soil.
Yes, it was approved in 2000.
What happens if, after that's been sitting there for several years, that stuff doesn't perk? Where's your next place for a system? Is there another place on site that you guys can pursue?
We were anticipating using that septic design that was approved, and we reached out to the Board of Health, and they said that if we can confirm that the same parent material is there, then they would allow that design to be approvable again, or basically accept that design. So we went out there in February and dug down like 15 feet, couldn't get to parent material, and that's the deepest the machine could go, so we couldn't, really feel confident about stamping a letter that says it's the same parent material. So until we remove that pile, we don't know if that parent material has changed, but our thought process was that when he was developing this site, because that location was approved, he stockpiled all that material on there so he wouldn't start moving around that earth. So it's kind of like he put that there to hold the place of the septic, knowing that he can't dig that all up because it's part of the approved design. We have not looked at other septic locations because, again, we were going to use that approved plan.
Maybe. It's just something to be cautious of. I mean, I've seen areas that have been designated for detention and infiltration, and during construction, the contractors stockpile a lot of material there, and then it doesn't perk, and they end up having to pull the material out and put something else in. I understand what you're saying, and theoretically, it sounds reasonable, but it doesn't sound like there's a backup plan, and that's a little bit, makes me a little bit nervous for you guys, that's all.
I think you gotta get some test pits in that.
Well, but I see your dilemma. I mean, if you can't, you've got a cease and desist order from the Conservation Commission, and then you can't.
Well, if they're at a standstill, they're gonna be on a standstill. I mean,
Right.
how do you develop the site and not be able to do test pits when
Yeah,
it's
so
25?
I don't know what the
cease and
How many
desist was
altitude
issued.
things there?
It's 25 feet high. I can't tell you the survey, but the cease and desist was when they were dumping fill. They weren't trucks were there, so he gave the cease and desist. I don't think that was cease and desist.
All activity on the
All
site.
activity, it was
Okay,
just no
gotcha.
more dumping on the site.
Understood.
So-
Okay, good.
Where the vehicles are parked now, I mean, if it was me, I would flip the pile to there and allow them to park where you dig your test pits. It's a little extra in excavation, but at least it covers your butt.
So the construction fence that's out there right now is about 5 feet away from the Zone 2 district, which triggers conservation, and we would only prove that if we're outside. So I can't go move that pile because that's in jurisdiction.
Is the pile clean, do we know? Has it been tested? You have to all on site, I mean, you're gonna have to spend some money, is the problem. It's just, I know you guys are working on a budget, but.
Yeah, there's money to spend just moving that pile is going to be a big cost, but if we can put it somewhere else, like graded into the hillside that we want, then at least we don't have to move it twice, because moving it twice is twice as expensive.
I think we've given as much information
Right.
as we
Talk
can
to
tonight.
conservation and see if they'll let you grade the site to make it safe or something. Along those lines, rectify some of the sins of the past.
I mean, that seems like a reasonable approach, what Troy said. I mean, can you not approach conservation, explain what you want to do, tell them you want to do preliminary grading, and see if they can go establish the, make sure that the wetland boundaries have been verified and so forth, and just stay away from those and grade the rest of the site in areas that you can work in?
Yeah.
Whatever.
I would have to have a
Sorry, go
conversation with Brent. If we could move that pile as kind of a rough grading exercise and not just relocate it right where the trucks are, then we could, that would be better for everyone.
Tell them you're gonna use it to build access to get all the logs from over there.
it's kind of a balancing act with what he wants to do, but because we're outside that zone two, he was happy to approve it, but once we start going inside the zone two, you know, that's when they really start looking at, you know, your notice of intent application and all that stuff that you need to submit, which is pending site plan review.
I would have a conversation with him and see what he says.
See if we can make some adjustments.
And then maybe you come up with something with some phases on it for us to look at. We'll do it all over again.
Yeah. I know it's not clear, but just, I don't think there's really no guidelines or
Yeah, it's kind of
guides in the
one-off.
ordinance for us. You know, we're trying to work with you. I think we can work something out, but I can't promise the next meeting will be more positive. I don't know. I mean, you know, but I think where we need a building to constitute a site plan,
Okay.
so long as you provide us that in phase one, and the intention being that at the end of phase one, there'll be a building,
Yeah.
then I think we have the basis for a review.
Okay. So building for phase one, phase two can deal with the other part. Work with conservation, see if they can give us a buy on the moving the earth inside their jurisdiction.
Yeah.
If they point back to you.
Well, I mean,
Planning side.
the thing is, he has control over what you do today. We don't presently. You know, we have control about what you want to do, but
Right.
what you're doing today is not our jurisdiction.
Okay.
All right?
All right, so he's not here.
Yeah. Well, we'd be here for another 2 hours if we were. So,
That's true.
all right, so thanks for your time tonight. Is there anything else we can do for you?
I think that's it for tonight, and I will request a continuance to the August 11th.
Let's make a motion to continue this to the August 11th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so the motion carries, and we'll see you at the 11th, the hearing on the 11th.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks,
you
and
guys.
thanks for, you know, we're worth working through it.
Yeah, it's a puzzle out there, but we'll get there.
All right, so we have the special permit site plan review for the proposed 50 by 100 accessory garage building for ZBL 4.8.1H on the property located at 11 Rivers Edge Drive by John and Lauren DeLuise, property owners, also identified as map 10, lot 3-5-3, consisting of 1.7 acres located in the outlying zoning district.
Okay, so I think last time we told the board had indicated that, you know, they came down from 5,000 square feet to 2,500 square feet. And the board told them still it's too big, so, they were supposed to, like, would come back with some kind of indication that they would be reducing the size of. They haven't submitted, they do have time constraints with their engineer. They're asking us to just basically put the application on hold, which, you know, if, I guess we do that, we pretty much suspend the review, and then when they bring something back in, then I would go back to all the public notices and everything, and we'd almost be treating it like a new hearing. Or the board could, you know, the board could also at this point decide, you know, that it's not going anywhere. I did let them know that they should be here tonight to actually at least inform the board if they intend to reduce the size of the structure.
What would be the benefit to them for us keeping it open? Just that they wouldn't have to pay the fee a second time?
Yeah, yeah.
And just, I mean, I don't want to dismiss the financial impact, but it's not that big a deal, is it? How much was the application?
Oh, I mean, it's 1,200.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, it's
That's still
still,
money.
and then they have
Yeah.
to pay for the engineering
And did they use, did we go through all 1,200? I mean, is there anything?
well,
unused?
1,200 is the filing fee.
Okay.
Yeah, but this is the engineering. I mean, Wayne he came out to the site visit and he issued a preliminary report.
No, I just wanted, you know, I do see their interest in keeping it open so that they can avoid that second
Yeah.
application.
We also have property abutters who have been following this. And of course, if we did put it on hold, I would be notifying everybody.
That's my point. Is how do the abutters know when it's reactivated unless you're?
Yeah, when they bring a new application, when they bring it back in,
That's
it's
probably-
treated almost as if it's if it's, you know, I would re-advertise, I would do all the public notice the way we did.
Well,
the
I
first-
feel if they're not here, the burden's on them to just reapply.
I do too.
I mean, if you can't be bothered to show up to defend yourself or, I mean,
Protect your
Well,
interest.
I
protect
think-
your interests,
I
correct.
think because the neighbors and it's unified in the neighborhood,
Oh, yeah, they want nothing to do with it.
that they need to be notified.
All right, well, we've already, so where we left it last time was we kind of gave them an informal determination that we felt like that we couldn't approve what they had. We asked them for more. They haven't come back to change what they've proposed,
Make a motion to terminate.
to deny the applicant's
Yeah,
petition.
yeah.
All
What
right.
happens if you deny it? Can they come back?
They
You were the
can
different
appeal it,
proposal.
or they can renew it.
They can
Yeah,
come
they
with a
could come back
different.
with it.
But there's no prejudice, there's no period of time when they can't reapply, is there?
No, they should be able to come back
With
with,
a different proposal.
you know, with a different, but they would have to come back with something that was more amenable. So they
Right,
could come back
but
with.
not like there's some acts that you can't do but once every 2 years.
Yeah, Board of Appeals, you can't come back. In some cases, the planning board can overrule the Board of Appeals.
So,
Or you can.
I just don't want to deny them
Can
the
you
right
deny
to.
without prejudice?
Well, we are denying with prejudice though. We don't like the plan.
You don't like the plan is, well,
And they know that.
Yeah, we don't know of any reason they can't. I didn't want to take away from them the right to reapply, and it doesn't sound like we are.
But they, you know, they were informed that they needed to be here.
Yeah.
yeah.
What was it? Anybody make a motion?
I think it was Jack's motion
Second.
to deny, and Troy actually already seconded it.
Okay, that's good.
So,
Second.
We can
Jack's
have
motion,
it.
Troy's second. All in favor? Say aye. So, that petition has been denied.
Just a question.
Yes.
If they do the appeal
Oh.
process, I apologize, Melissa Roy, Rivers Edge Drive, we as a butters get notified?
Yes.
It would start all over.
So the appeal process would be starting all over?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Oh.
They would just have to
At this point, it's been
reapply.
denied. They can appeal it. If they do, we'll all notice, somehow,
For all of your time over the last year and a
yeah.
half.
Thank
But
you.
if they submit a new application, you'll receive it above.
Okay.
And
Thank you very much.
that's my point, is I wanted
Yeah.
you to know that something's happening.
Thank
This-
you.
If they keep postponing it and we continue it, they could show up here and you might not know it at all.
Well, at this point, I think this is another butter, I think we've been to more meetings than they have at this point, but that's neither here nor there, but thank you so
Well, you
much.
could have made a phone call if you heard them come in.
That's okay, well, I wanted to be kind and respectful to everybody, so have a wonderful day.
Okay, thank you. But this is the last hearing on this matter. It's closed until you get something else in the mail, okay?
Just made my night, thank you very much, as much as I love seeing you every month. Have a great day.
Well, you're the closest to butter.
I am, yes, thank
Yeah.
you. Have a great day.
All right, so sorry for making you folks wait around, particularly if we're doing it, you must be here for the informal discussion today about some apartments you're considering developing on Ellsworth and Meeting House Road. So, once you feel like to tell us who you are, and I know you sent some plans, 'cause Kirk also has them, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Because the reproductions are hard to make much of. Can you tell us, I mean, we've considered potentially other petitions by you for Meeting House Road, have we?
Not yet.
Okay. Meeting House Road is a way that was in existence prior to 1880 or something like that, and has a historic recognition, but it's too narrow for a roadway, I understood.
Correct. Mike, if we can pull up the, just like the front page so we can kind of, and that's really Roger LeBlanc, 14 Mill Road, Ipswich.
Sarah Winkelman, 87 High Street, Ipswich.
What it is that we have lots 23, 27, and 33 Ellsworth. And that area you're talking about is like a real unique area. So it'd be these, we're talking these parcels here, 23, 27. So the history that I looked at there is that before Wilson Pond, the subdivision was in there. There was access from Leslie Road, and then number 62 Leslie is a house that was built in 1950. So there's no other way to go there. That road had to be driven on as a way. The telephone poles were put in 1955.
On Ellsworth, I was gonna
Yeah,
let you
so,
finish.
so what there is, this house here was built like 1950. So before Wilson Pond was put in like in the 80s, one had to go through here to get to their property. I think there was a nice house, and one of these might have been one of the older houses that used that for access. Even the numbers go this way, 23, 27, 33, 39, 43. Even though they call this Ellsworth, this is Ellsworth here. It changed, and I can never figure out, you know, what the history of that road is. Now, Meeting House, this is the Meeting House part that goes all the way through here.
And that goes out to Leslie Road, right, by Pulpit Rock?
Well, Leslie,
Leslie, where they're going into
Yeah,
Cindy
yeah.
Lane, they're crossing over Cindy Lane.
Yeah, this Meeting House, so what's the weird thing is that this is supposedly Ellsworth to this point. Then this says Ellsworth on a lot of maps, a lot of deeds, a lot of properties, but then the assessor changed it to Meeting House. Like I have a 78 field card for these properties, and it names it Ellsworth. You know, then all of a sudden, in some point in time, someone changed the name.
It's
Now,
convoluted.
yeah, it's convoluted.
I know it is, I'm not,
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is, but I know that there's a lot of question about it. Is Ellsworth a public way?
Ellsworth,
it,
there it is.
Ellsworth is not a public way, and it's not maintained as a public way. I mean, it's a private,
What part though?
well, I think all the way up to Wilson Pond Road. I mean, I think that's a private way, unless you have other information.
When you say all the way up, where's
Well,
starting
often,
where?
So what there is some plans that were done, A&R plans by this board in the 2000s, actually probably up to 2007, and these were redivided. This was one big property, and they divided this. This is the original, this is a new lot, that's a new lot. This is a new lot that the road was never constructed. These two houses use this easement that comes through here that's called Leslie Terrace. This property here is supposedly Meeting House, but if you look at any other, the mailbox over here is 38, the street listing is 38 Ellsworth. There's no Meeting House in the street listing book for the people to vote. So this was granted a decision by the ZBA in 97, 98 that made a finding that this part here is adequate under whatever 81L for the subdivision regulations. So we have this property. I first bought this property and this property. Then this one was just acquired by Sarah for, probably 2 years ago. So we bought them individually. These are all grandfathered lots that existed back in 1950, and we kept it that way. And now that we have the 3 lots together, we came up with this proposal because it's like, well, you can't do a road, you know, it's not a way, a public way. And it's very tough to say that this house can be built here in 99 and you get the property across the street and the same road doesn't have legal access to the.
That happens, it's in my backyard, I have the same problem.
And I don't think that the fact that the house across the street's been developed necessarily means that the roadway will provide access to your lot. I'm not saying it doesn't, but maybe they have a fee interest in that roadway, or they have an easement or right of way from the fee interest holder.
It's a way back. I mean, the other unique thing here is there's actually cables that the DPW director or highway surveyor put. And if it wasn't a public way, you can't block with cables because the town doesn't have access, so it's not a public way. But for some reason, the town just put a cable across the road. So I have to go from my lot 33, I have to go all the way through here, all the way here to go to my lot that I own either at 33 or 27. And I can't, I guess I could remove the cable and say I get the right in that way.
But
to
if
go
it's
there.
private, how can they block
But-
it? Then wouldn't all the lot owners have it, the interest in it?
Yeah, I have fee interests with all the 3 lots that, you know, that I can use the road both ways. I mean, I could probably go.
Well, if you
to
butt it
Leslie
and
also.
the town doesn't own it, then you own the center line of it.
And you have the right to improve it?
Well, you have the right
for
to the
access.
center line in front of your lot, but that wouldn't necessarily get you out the public way.
Right, but I think too, if you go to, what we're proposing is under a 40B statute, so, and Roger can talk better about the 40B requirements for access, but they don't technically, my understanding is require a legal road, they just require access, it doesn't have to be a public way.
That said, it would still have to be an adequate roadway to support the public safety requirements for the site. So, I mean, as far as my recollection of that is it's a pretty rough dirt road, right?
It is in parts.
It is, I mean,
What's the width
I
of
guess,
the road?
I guess
I
the
mean,
thing
on
is,
average,
I guess
you
the
know?
question is
Is it 12 feet?
is this a public road that you can get A&R lots off of it? And I guess the point is, if this is adequate for these houses to use that and it's turned a public way, you know, I'm looking to improve here, probably go right to where the edge of 43, because 56 and 43, this is kind of where all the plans are A&R plans. So typically on a comprehensive permit process, if there's a deficiency in the public way, you can't have the applicant say, well, there's an existing houses there, so you gotta solve everybody's problem. But there's been various plans that have been approved, and once an A&R plan is approved, that's a public way. I mean, it's a way that's.
Not necessarily. If it was a way, a private way that was in existence prior to 1950, I believe, when the subdivision control law was adopted, then it could still be a private way. You could approve an A&R on a private way if you show that the way existed prior to the subdivision control law. And I think Ellsworth is an example of that.
But the town plows it.
I mean, look, I'd like you to find and prove your case, but that's not gonna help much, because the town ignores some of the land they own, and they plow land that they shouldn't. But I mean, I do think it's a research project. I'm not saying that you can't get there, but I think you gotta be able to prove that the right of, that Ellsworth is a public way that can provide you access over the public way to the adjoining streets, and that the street in front of the lots that you're hoping to develop and access to the public way is fully adequate.
Right. One unique thing here, though, that this is the other lots that were across the street from parcel. These are grandfathered lots, so they existed before zoning.
Yeah.
So the zoning didn't even define frontage at that point.
Right.
The other lots were divided off the big subdivision, so they were common ownership. So, you know, what it is, I went to the Board of Appeals, they determined elsewhere it's not sufficient, but I acquired 3 lots. And then now it's to provide the access there. I guess the other option is that you can probably come out to Leslie Road and construct some type of access there, but the town's probably not gonna want that. But even though having 3 lots there, you do have the right to improve that roadway. That would provide sufficient, you know, fire department and access to the property.
Well, right, if it's a public way, you could develop it so long as you agree to improve it. But if it's not a public way, then you need the rights from the private owners to do so. So I still don't think anyone has, and not just you, I think it's a question mark for a lot of people out there. Can someone do the research to tell us who owns Ellsworth Way?
Well, it was laid out in the 1800s, so we know that. Supposedly it was abandoned and not used as a way, but it's still a way.
There were appropriated funds from the town at different points
Yeah,
throughout
in
history.
1940, they appropriated $200 by the Leslie and Ellsworth for the cemetery. So the town typically can't appropriate money on something that's not a public way. You know, I'm just trying to figure here as a planning board, to me, I look at this and it's like, wow, this is kind of weird. So you have these 2 houses here on approved subdivision that was never constructed, you know? So how do these houses now get an easement to go through here called Leslie Terrace, and they can get building permits? And it's like, no one can, it doesn't make any sense. I know that's approved, but you only can build a road for so long. You only get 7 years to build a road. So there's no construction at one. This does not exist.
What did Ken Ward, did you check with Ken Ward about how that happened?
No one can explain it. I mean, my thought is that someone was in the neighborhood and they just didn't want the redevelopment to go there. Because none of it's like, I have like tax bills that says 78, in 1978, Ellsworth for what? I have the town clerk certifying that that .37 is a public way. That it's on the list. The town gets funds from Mass Highway to fix the roads in town. That's listed on their list. So it's like, it's all showing, like, how can the highway surveyor block that road with a cable and a telephone pole buried if it's not a public way?
Is it possible that, that he's doing so, they're trying to say that's the limit of the public way?
But the town can't do a private way. You can't block a private driveway. I mean,
But they can.
You can do it either way.
But they can block, it's a weird puzzle,
It's a weird
right?
dynamic. So you go there, there's 2 telephone poles with the electrical cable guidelines. They cross it with the, it blocks in like with the old,
those guy wires.
So it's like,
Yeah.
but the highway director is only in charge of highways that are public ways. He can't go block a private roadway. He did it, and questioned it.
I mean, you're right. It would seem like that's the case, but on the other hand, can he put a gate at the end of the public way?
Correct, and the town has all the electric poles in 1955. I had one of the electric guys run the dates on the pole, and it's like, they don't have an easement. So you don't go normally put telephone poles that aren't a public way. I mean, you look at all the elements, it screams that it was a public way. It's not just that. This house here was built in 1950, right? So how did someone get to that house? They had to leave their driveway, because this was all one big property, come out and go to Ellsworth. The numbering sequence proves that this is the same roadway that went up here, just the numbers. These will be different sequence, So a lot of the stuff you look at, you try figuring out like what is going on here. It's like, it's too much cost to say to improve that as a whole public roadway and do stormwater that, and then no one's going to participate with you, to fix that roadway. But the key thing on the 40B is you just need a driveway. You don't even need public frontage on the way,
40B is not a good way for people to live. There's a lot of opposition to 40B, no matter what. Yeah, you have rights and you can get it. I have not seen, I'm an architect, and I have not seen one good 40B project. Somebody could probably find one. But I would think of some better way to use your land in a 40B out in the middle of nowhere.
But I would say like in Raleigh and 133, you had the 24 units that was across from the old base company. That was a 40B.
But it was predated zoning, I'm pretty sure.
No, that's in the 80s.
It's also a little different neighborhood.
It is, but I mean, that's a very good example, and it's, I'm going down this long road to try to provide affordable housing, so that's a challenge, and there's a need for it. The town's at around 4%. The last rental affordable unit built in town is probably 40, 45 years ago. It's been a long time, and even that project there, that's an over 55. So there is a tremendous need for affordable housing in the community.
But this is not the way to do it. You do not want to put, how many units do you want to propose for here?
12 units.
Wow.
12 units of people who are all in the same boat. That's not good.
No, it's 25% affordable,
I think
75% market.
75% market, so it's not
Okay.
all, that 40B, but.
Why isn't it an OSRD?
It's not like they have the open space.
They don't want,
I think the thing that sometimes confuses folks is that if you have a rental project, 40B project, even though 25% is affordable, all 100% of the units come on the SHI for the town. But it doesn't mean they're all affordable, 75% are market rate. So you're only looking at, in these 3-4 unit buildings, 1 unit in each building would be affordable. And there's the benefit too, of not only adding to the SHI, but we would have a handicap accessible unit on the ground level, which is ideal for, countless reasons.
I'm very interested in affordable housing.
Yeah.
Spots, 4 units, not bad. But this, the way you've drawn the buildings on the site, it's a dream.
What do you mean?
It's an uphill site,
Right.
and you've got 3 or 4 buildings that are exactly alike, and
Yeah. They're built into the embankment so that on
I
the,
think you can think out a better way to do it.
well, we welcome feedback.
I only got the, sure.
So the building was designed actually, so that the front portion where you enter, here you would have your handicap accessible unit run all along this floor here. And then here you have a 400 square foot unit that is also single level but not technically handicap accessible. And then you have 2 townhouse style units on the upper level. But because it's built into the embankment, this is what the rear portion of it looks like, so that their main living level actually comes out at grade on the back to give them a patio space and make it feel almost like a single
I'm
family
taking
home.
basically the same floor plan, but jiggle joggling it around, you get different looks on the outside, but you can do the same accomplishment without feeling that you've taken and use a cookie cutter plan.
So would you want the buildings to each look different from one another, or what do you have in mind?
Well, if it did get to that stage, I want places that people could feel that they own. Not-
Well, these are gonna be rentals though, so it's a little different,
But
so.
just the same, that you get the individuality.
Right. A little bit of history on the property is that it's been perked. There's 2 active septic approvals that are on the property. Since we acquired the middle lot, we've done more soil testing. So the plans you have in front of you are actually typically on a 40B project. It's just general conceptual plans.
No. What's the size of the town property that's adjacent to it?
There's 2 separate lots that are there. I don't, probably 10,000. We took one lot for not paying the taxes.
What's the town own the lots for?
What's that?
Why do they own the lots?
I mean, I don't know.
That would be a question probably for maybe.
It would be better included in any proposal.
But
They're not doing anything with the lots. If something can happen, those should be included in the idea. What about neighbors? You get a lot of neighbors out there,
No, not very many actually. And that's one of the things actually that we like about it, is that it actually provides an opportunity for rental housing in a nice, quiet, rural neighborhood, as opposed to a dense site. It's a nice alternative to what you frequently see, in our opinion.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around access. Does this come in by like the tennis court off of, right there?
Yeah, currently that's how you access it, yeah.
I mean, the other option, you could come to Leslie Terrace, but I'd assume because you get the Pulpit Rock, the cemetery, and the other land, that, the town doesn't want to see access that way.
You know, I know, coming off of Cindy Lane, we looked at something where somebody proposed
That was the meeting house.
meeting house.
Yeah.
And the causeway off of Cindy Lane was 22 feet wide, wasn't it?
Something like that.
And we said, can't do it.
Yeah, this is 40, this is a little more than 40.
How is this, isn't it the same road? Isn't it the
No,
same?
it's
road?
not.
you-
It's
you
a little
remember-
different.
Okay,
Based on
because
something that
really,
happened.
I know we're real early in this, but this is such a tricky area. And I don't know, we were also dealing with something on Cindy Lane where
Remember
subdivisions
when
are
we-
trying to merge and meeting houses is the rub in the Cindy Lane issue we're dealing with
But you
too.
remember when we looked at that, we did that walk all the way up to where Ellsworth is, and you know where that person's driveway, there's a, where Meeting House joins Ellsworth, that's actually somebody's driveway. And they
Right.
tried to actually, you remember when we were talking about, Meeting House, when they came in, did those presentations?
Yeah.
They actually showed that driveway that currently is there being converted to Meeting House.
Okay, right.
But the place where they're talking is if you were on Ellsworth at the end of where that driveway is, and going towards the gate, that is.
Going towards the gate,
Leslie.
towards Pulpit Rock.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, so
Yeah.
two of the lots are more or less on the Pulpit Rock side of the gate, and then one is on the.
Yeah, in the
other
package,
end.
the third sheet shows like, what the road width is in front of the property. It's, granted, it's a plan that the ZBA endorsed, but they found that that was adequate, whatever, under 4181L, a public way.
Public ways.
I don't know, Kurt, did you pull up the third page maybe on, I think it's the third, 1, 2, 3,
Is it on,
third
so
page.
two files?
Yeah, it's this one,
Oh,
it's this one.
okay.
How big is the total site?
It's like 1.18 or something like that, a little over an acre.
It's 16, so it'd be 8.
375 by 150, is that what I'm saying?
A little over an acre.
I don't think this is, not all of that was ours.
Yeah, it's probably the other.
Shows a
submittal.
24-foot
Like,
width road.
the-
I
That's
don't,
what was submitted to the,
Let me see what,
Well, they emailed
I don't know
you.
what that road is.
well, these were the files that you emailed.
Right away.
So if you go on page 3 of 10, right here, it shows what they're proposing 24, and I'm assuming these old lines are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right away, right?
Well, quotations right up above.
But then again, no one really knows.
If it's 40, it's 40.
You got a 50 foot. Well, that's what you guys
20.
told me when I came to talk to you way back in the day. Told me to take my hat and go home.
Still got your hat.
I know.
So how would you, you know what, I gotta familiarize myself more with the site, it might be too early
Yeah, I gotta
to
take
ask
a
those
look.
questions, to ask some of the questions I have, so. So, the other thing is, and you know, I've been on this board for 7 years, we've never looked at a 40B.
Well,
This was just for
This is
feedback.
for information. They're not gonna.
Exactly, so
Yeah.
I guess the whole board would need to be familiarized with how we treat, if anything, we'd hope you do a friendly 40B and try to work with us so that we can tailor something that, because otherwise, we have no say in it, you're just gonna do what you want. Because that's more or less the process.
CBA is the approving.
Okay.
They would do the comprehensive permit, but they would consult with the other boards.
All right.
Right, so our process, we've dealt with Mass Housing, and in the funding, in the site approval letter, that's what we're in the process of applying for, is that we make an outreach to the town. So we met with Kurt, he's like, hey, why don't you come to the planning board and see if there's design
Feedback.
issues, you know, and feedback. And one thing we did with the proposal that is to add a cul-de-sac, because there's no turnaround there. So it's like you put a cul-de-sac, for the fire department can turn around into that. We get stormwater plans, septic plans, soil testing, adequate parking, units will be fired, sprinkler, most of the details. And I think, exactly where we're focusing right now is like the access. But,
Right.
Kirk is going through all these plans, and a lot of them are signed by this planning board that list the lots on it. It's like, so you have like an A&R plan here, and this is 23, it's these 3 lots here. Town of Ipswich, Town of Raleigh owns this, and then this shows this area. So it's like, this is, and typically, once the A&R plan, it's gotta be on one of them, ways that you have, it's gotta be technically a public way, or a way that's deemed suitable to drive for traffic, but there's probably at least 10, 12 plans, and it lists all these lots. It's not often that you're gonna have the lots listed on an A&R plan, but for some reason, I don't know why lot 23, 24, and 25 are listed on the plan, but it is on an A&R plan, It is endorsed by I think it's to show lot B that was on Meeting House to show the public way. I don't know exactly what that plan was done for, but, the planning board endorsed it.
So this A&R plan created not all these lots, but Lot B?
Yeah, I assume, I don't know if it has the standard A&R language, but I assume it does with B and something up here, and then they changed all the lots here, because today the lot is, 23, 27, 33, it's different map and lot numbers, which confuses everything. But these are the 3 parcels that we control, and this is Ellsworth Road, and this is in 1972, and it's shown that Ellsworth Road is from Leslie going in here. Wilson Park didn't even exist. So how could the planning board say this had access on a road where Wilson Pond didn't exist? It's like a total quagmire. So, look, so 72, Wilson Pond is not even there. It's just a big farmland. So this is a public way, and the board approved this lot that determined that this lot was on a public way. So my argument is, well, this lot, that lot, that lot has to be on a public way. I mean,
But the gate is on this side of lot 23, right?
no, but, correct.
So
The
it's
gate is
possible
right,
that
the gate is right here. That's
So
where the gate is.
It's possible that everything on that side is public.
It didn't exist though.
Yeah,
Wilson
there's no
Pond wasn't
access. Oh, I see.
here.
His point
There was
is
no
also-
subdivision.
It would have been
Because
dead
that-
in the
because that
woods,
didn't
yeah.
exist.
You would've went to the ice pond where they got the ice, right? I mean, so I'm looking at this saying, someone is not telling me a true story. If you look based on that plan, what's going on here? So Wilson Park, there's no subdivision, right? The Wilson Pond subdivision. And the planning board endorsed that Ellsworth, it wasn't Meeting House in 72, it was
Is
Ellsworth.
this but
That's at the registry.
this
It's
may
on the
even
page.
be an A&R, but like I said, if it was a
It
private
doesn't-
way
it
that
doesn't say,
exists.
but it doesn't
Even
say.
if it
to the
was,
rest.
huh?
Is it a public way from the opposite direction?
Yeah,
It
I
could
mean,
be a
that's what that
public way,
plan
but it may
shows.
not be public, it could still have been a private way.
Then how could the town block the access?
I mean, that's the thing, so that's the thing, so.
From that side, I mean, if it was a, I mean, I know what you're saying, but if this.
So this is
if
recorded
this
plan
portion
and
was
book.
made public, it could be that the portion that's public is actually from Wilson Pond.
It didn't exist though.
But it may not, but do you know,
It was that you couldn't go, it was in the woods.
okay, I don't know, I
Yeah,
doubt the
but-
town has accepted Ellsworth since.
So you had the
since,
cemetery,
Wilson
if you
Pond
look at this,
itself.
this
Yeah.
roadway width is
Yeah.
wider than what
There's
actually
absolutely-
Leslie is.
Title, you can hire title
Yeah.
examiners to find things back to the King's Grant. But this would have to go back that far, because that Pulpit Rock was a town community gathering place for, 300 years ago. And I believe the town is exercising whatever authority it had then in blocking the road today. It seems
But
like
it-
they're using,
Whether it's legal or not.
No, but
Well-
so say based on this plan, this is at the registry, right? And as the planning board, what is this plan? The planning board endorsed it back in 72. It was to approve Lot B, right? And we know Wilson Pond didn't exist. Why are the other lots mentioned on that? I mean, it's like someone's playing games. When I do my forensic at the registry and look at all the plans, I'm like, someone is pulling a fast one here. This is an A&R plan. Someone can say whatever they're gonna say.
Yeah, but Kirk's point's accurate. I mean, you can get an A&R, you can get a lot approved on a private way.
But if this lot could get it, if this lot is valid, this one, this one, this one, this one, this
Not
one.
necessarily, because it's a private way. So each of those lots would have to have that private right to access Ellsworth
But how did
Lane.
Lot B get divided? It didn't even meet zoning in 1972. It
Do you
didn't
know what
meet
the
through.
zoning rules were in
When it came to the
1972?
board.
Yeah, they pretty much stayed the same. They haven't changed much. I mean, they might have been like 30,000 square feet, but
What
it
do you mean
wasn't,
for
it wasn't a
advantages?
small lot like that.
But
That's like a
I don't
7,000.
think it goes, the fact that the lot was approved, it could have been approved on a private way.
Right, we
So,
understand.
so I don't know how the existence of the other lots, arguably on a private way, bootstraps this into a public way.
Either way, either it is a public way, and there is access based on the public way, or if it's a private way, we have the right to access it as owners abutting the private way. I mean, you
But-
can
but-
make the argument from either side, it's just a question of which is it, and
But
then how you
then, but then,
proceed.
Well-
but there's a reason the lots aren't shown on the other side of the road. These are all lots also. So there's a reason that, these lots are shown, and then this lot's shown, and the planning board endorsed it. I don't know if it's an A&R plan or a subdivision plan. There's no note, but A&R approval was effective in 1972. And what was it cut from? It wasn't cut from anything. Were you dividing this from, what was this lot B for? I mean, it's like, who knows? what the purpose of that is.
Well,
You have to go further.
it's
back.
not possible that the purpose of this was actually, was Ellsworth in existence? I mean, was this, that portion of Ellsworth in existence?
So, yeah, is it splitting, is it showing a split of the road?
Yeah, it shows Meeting House, and Ellsworth continued to where the other house is, because there's a house at number 62 that was up here, and there's another one that was further near the ice pond. That's how you drove to the property. I mean, you didn't go any other
It
way.
was an old farmhouse, I think, in there.
There was, there's one, the original house is up front of Wilson Pond.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the access.
And that's, they went down Wilson Pond. So since 72 forward, no one's abandoned the road. Yeah, there might have been some old town meeting in 1880, but this is 72, and there's no work after 72 that abandoned this roadway. You know, and I'm just trying to find out, you know, what's the deal here? It's like, you know, but there's a lot of plans, Kurt, there's other plans that do the same thing. That it shows these lots on an A&R plan, or a plan approved by the planning board. Now, I know with this plan here, you can say, well, 40B or whatever, but you're gonna have someone look at this, and they're gonna say, well, the planning board approved this in 72, Lot B doesn't even have, you know, no more information, you don't even know who owns it. The other lots at least have a name on it. And where was it cut off of? You know?
Well, I mean, if your position is that you have access, whether it's a public way or a private way, then what are we debating?
Well,
I think we were just, that was something we all got stuck on, is how
Okay.
do we have access? And so.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
does this plan have any effect of, you know, what was the purpose of this plan? I mean, I'm looking at
Are
that.
you looking at the potential of asking the town to open it up from Leslie Road to your parcels?
I think we're open probably to either.
Or either way, I guess the
Yeah.
gate would have to come
Yeah.
down, so.
Yeah, you know, I think that that's something to be ironed out as we
Yeah.
proceed, is how, you know, what the best way to go is.
Yeah.
But our position is that we legally are entitled to the access, be it public or private, and then, you know, improving it if we need to access the lots.
I wonder if that aspect of it, you should petition the highway department or the board of selectmen to grant, you know, to ask them for that access, to be able to, have you tried that, or?
No, but what are we petitioning them for, to take down the
Well,
bollard,
to
or-
provide you access from one side or the other, and I guess from Wilson Pond, since that's, you know, that's actually at least a private drive that has access all the way to your parcels, and then to move the gate back this way if possible, so that you can develop your parcels under a 40B option.
Yes, you can ask for any waiver, you know, before we, but we're meeting, it's like, I've been very frustrated with these properties. I bought them, and I developed other property in town. I got 151 Boxwood, grandfather lot, I bought one at 6 Walnut, I bought the other town property at 9. And I built and rent the houses, so I'm in the rental business. But, so I bought these 2 grandfather lots, and I looked at all the deeds and all the plans. And as far as my knowledge is, no one can say that, you know, I look at the 72 plans signed by the planning board, and it's like, what is there had to be a purpose of this plan, I assume, right? It says Ellsworth Road, the roadway layout is as wide as Leslie, probably even wider, and even going towards Wilson Pond is even wider. And then it's like, well, no, that's not a way. I look at the plan across the street from me, and the ZBA says one side of the road you can drive to your house, but if you have the lot across the street, you can't. It's like some of it doesn't make really much sense, but.
Well, obviously, we've been confused when we've looked at it, and even if it's, let's just say it's a public way, and they made the decision to put the ballot up, we found no paper trail as to how or when that was decided. There's just one memo about it going up. So there's definitely a lot of confusion.
There was a land court visit, and 25 cars went by, and the land court judge was in, it went down within a week, the gate went up. Fact. In 2001, that's when the gate.
Say that again.
The land court judge came to visit this site, and then about, I guess they got like 25 people that drive the cars down the road, and they blocked the road within a week of that.
Oh.
The town, you know,
So
The cars
whatever
drove
the
in.
judge did convinced people that the road was open for public use. Until
Correct.
the town decided that it wasn't.
Correct.
Yeah. And we
Right,
don't know why.
and not just that, but when you own land on a way like that, the town blocks it, you have to notify us, you have to send legal notices. never done. It just said one day, here's the key for the lockdown at Leslie and the other one, and talk to me if you want to get access. There's a gate at the other side on Leslie also, but that's open because someone goes through the town of Raleigh's property to get to their backyard. You know, that's open all the time.
Maybe.
Is that one thing you
Or
could
police
petition the town for, is to
So
explain?
just kids partying down there?
Yeah, that would be a bit hairy.
Is that one thing you could petition the Board of Selectmen? Is to
Troy, you know anything about that?
provide an
You grew up in that area, did you?
Nothing been over that.
You didn't grow up here. You grew up where you live?
I grew up where I live.
Good.
I mean, what's your recollection of the history there? What, in 19...
Yeah, I remember the gate being there as long as I've been around, so.
Oh, so you say it precedes 2000, right? Is that what you're saying?
I remember the gate being there. I don't know specifically when they put it in.
Yeah, we have the letter or whatever.
I agree, it's a total mystery, and you know what, for the reason you just said, it may not matter. If you've got the rights, you've got.
Either way,
Right.
one can make the argument
So,
we have the right.
You know, so I appreciate, you know, coming to the board and telling us what you're doing. It sounds like we're not gonna, aside from commenting back to the ZBA, if it goes that route, well, I guess there's nothing, you know, 12 units, 3 lots with 3 units, we can't persuade you to do something else with it, or at least.
Well, if the road could be improved, I mean, that's always a thing, but no one would look at that. I mean, the other option, that there are 3 grandfathered lots, they all perk, you can all put a well on it, you know, and if that roadway, the only thing is I look at these plans and I'm like, you know, I get frustrated. It's like, this clearly shows Ellsworth is Ellsworth, with a lot that's further away from Leslie. It would have showed where you want the public way to go that way, but you would have got stuck in a pond, you know, wherever the, you know, I don't think you could have went back to Leslie the other way. You know, it wasn't possible, you know?
Yeah,
So,
But there was
No,
a
it-
reason, there was a reason to go up there.
The ice pond, right?
The ice.
But there was other houses. There was a house at
Houses up there.
62.
There were a couple.
Yeah, there were a
Yeah.
couple
There
houses
was
there.
houses up
Yeah,
there. There is,
But there's a reason to
right.
go.
I mean, I think one of the reasons why, and it was Kirk's suggestion, that we wanted to meet with you and discuss this with you, was to get your feedback and your suggestions on the proposal. Like hearing the architectural comments or hearing other feedback. Because obviously we value that as we decide how to proceed.
No, we're here in no performance, and really, as the chair of the board and the planning board, is all I'm asking for is say, can we, and I can provide quite a few plans like this, and just get an explanation and say, the 7 years that you've been on the planning board, what do you think happened here? Because I get no idea.
I'm only smiling because in 25 years of looking at plans like that, you know, for other reasons, I can't always answer why stuff like that comes to be. I mean, why did they, who knows? Maybe that was just, you know, the engineer in his research had benchmarks for those lots, so he put them on the plan, you know? It doesn't necessarily mean that he was creating new lots.
Yeah, 'cause they.
Maybe they go way back and they were woodlots.
Well, when it said that it's a non-buildable lot, the Lot B back in 1972 would say not buildable, because it didn't conform with zoning back then. It was like 30,000 square feet back,
Yeah.
almost since, you know, 1960-something, that it's been pretty big lots. They went up to 60, but, you know, they showed the other lots there for a reason, but the key thing is that Ellsworth Road has a planning board signature, that a Lot B that has frontage on it got the planning board signature.
I think we've approved A&Rs on, with less evidence of an existing public way. But, I think there's more to the story on Meeting House Lane, from this history, just from being in town, I've known that every project that's come forward has had problems.
Is that the Serafini's property or something?
Well, Serafini's property is right, yeah.
The other end, yeah.
You know, where Meeting House Lane meets Cindy Lane, we're having an issue because the developer who owns the last 75 feet is trying to create a reserve strip to prevent that final connection. So it's the same reason you can't get access off of Meeting House Lane off of Cindy Lane. I mean, if the developer who developed Cindy Lane would finish his development, he would give us that access.
Right,
But he's not.
But the unique thing on this end of the roadway there's at least probably 10 planning board plans in the last 30, 40 years that are at the registry that was approved by the planning board. Them other situations you're talking about, there's some old, it's not even physically present, the roadway that's there, never mind having it on a planning board plan. But something that's signed by 72 of the planning board that shows this roadway, I mean, I'm open also to say, hey, maybe make one big lot there, and say, hey, I'm here trying to ask the planning board, hey, you've got these plans you approved, what does it mean? I can show you in the package Kurt has. The lot number 23 is number 23 Ellsworth Road in 1978. I went to the assessor, got all the further back field cards, explain how the lot changed streets. That in 78 it was on Ellsworth and today it's on Meeting House. This person, the person across the street is number 38. They say Meeting House, but the mailbox says Ellsworth. The voting list is Ellsworth. It's like when the thing was approved, it was Ellsworth.
So what did the highway department tell you?
They have no jurisdiction, they won't. They said they testified in Lane Court when they put the gate up or whatever. They're not the planning board. The planning board, did the planning board tell them to go block the road? No.
We certainly wouldn't have that authority. The authority don't have it today, didn't have it then, I don't think.
And there's a question if the highway director has that, if it's not a public way.
But where is Meeting House? At the intersection right there?
That's what a lot of plans show, yes, it's a lot of plans that show that.
Where it intersects Cindy Lane, it's Meeting House.
And it's a Meeting House when it comes into Ellsworth.
But I think
Because
historically,
historically, Meeting House took on more importance, and maybe it was Meeting House before it became Ellsworth.
I thought Pulpit Rock was on Meeting House Lane historically.
Ellsworth Meeting House, yeah. And then there's a warrant article from 1940 that they spent $200 to fix the roadway by the cemetery in Pulpit Rock. So they spend it, you can't spend government money to fix a non-public way. So they improve that, because what it is the parish gave the cemetery to the town. The old Weinberg parish gave that cemetery to the town, so the town back in 1940 spent $200 to fix the roadway that goes by there. That was the warrant.
So, if, from what the highway department tells you, the planning board is the one that said they could change, we don't know how that's the case. If we did have the discretion, what you'd like us to do is say, that's a public way, open it up, so that this applicant can have access?
Not that, so it can be a private way, like you say, that gives you access. Is it a private way that can give access to them lots? For zoning purposes.
It seems like I'm convinced it's a public way.
I mean, it could be a public way all the way from Wilson Pond to this point, but this section here, I think that's what's, is disputable whether it's either. I mean, it could be private or public, but, I mean, it's not, even if this shows Ellsworth Road, I don't know the planning board can actually authorize to opening it up.
My thought is, and obviously it's up for dispute, is that it is public when you look at the history of it and the appropriation of funds and other items that have occurred, but.
Who took it to land court?
Wasn't us,
The Wilson people, they have property, they actually have land on the Meeting House that they wanna build on the other part.
But so
That was the other, those were the, that's when we did that.
Yes.
There's like another big parcel that's, further down.
Yeah, that's
But
Oh, okay.
if the board would consider this though, I'm interested enough on this, I'd like to go to the next meeting and present, say these plans, just saying, besides what's being proposed, this to kind of like, so I have, because it's gonna become an issue down the road, and say, what is this way? And maybe I can convince the planning board with enough old plans, saying, hey, these planning board members, and the problem I have is the public is very difficult to go and get the planning board reason why in 72 this plan. There might be something that you know, in a file that says what the purpose of this was. Was there an application with this? Or was it just, here's the plan, no filing fee?
It's still difficult 2021.
Maybe I could, give this to Tom Mullen to look at, and ask what the planning board's authority would be.
Do you have
on
any
this.
notes from?
Well, we have all the
You can have
information
an
he's
opinion.
provided, I mean, he's provided all these plans.
No, but scroll through other plans, Kurt. There's a whole bunch of plans.
Oh, I know, but we're not gonna go through all
Yeah.
that.
No,
And
there's
I
a
don't
whole
think we're
bunch,
going
there's a whole
to,
bunch.
but I think that our town council might,
So it's kind of like.
maybe he could
they
look
didn't
into
start worrying
this
about whether
and give us
the
some
ledger on
idea
until-
Of what it is.
of what his
Later.
interpretation is and whether the planning board is, maybe want to actually say that the road could be opened up or
How
maybe
long
it
you-
fall to
how long you
the
been
board of
working on
selectmen.
this?
Where, on the property?
The first lot you purchased in 2016?
Yeah.
There's an
In 2016 probably.
Yeah, and then mine was about 2 years ago, the one in the
Decision to
center.
protect the town instead of doing what they let it look.
The history interests me.
And the interesting thing is all of the lots were deeded out separately and maintained in separate ownership throughout all this
How-
period.
How far back do those lots,
50s.
1950 before zoning.
why in 1950? That's what you gotta figure out.
And no one built on them all those years, but they maintained the separate ownership and pay taxes on them.
Yeah, some of
But,
them.
you know,
But I mean,
we could-
back then there was camps, like my
Yeah.
parents' house was a camp back in the 50s.
I mean, I did a lot on Ellsworth. When I say I did a lot, I helped a person who owned an undevelopable lot sell it for $500 to a guy who wanted to just visit once in a while. You know, I mean, so I think people might
With
have
the pond
purchased it
being
to,
there and stuff, I mean, back then it could have been camps. People were like, we'll set up camps, because Newbury Road was all camps, right? My parents
Actual
were.
camp
And
structures
the
or
land was
campers
not all
or-
wood.
Well, like spots to set up, eventually build camps and just never got around to it, or it just never took off.
and that's what I was thinking, maybe they were, you know, in the 1950s when this, like, you know, like Arlington Pond up in Salem, where people would just get out of the city and come up. Maybe
Throw
they
a
were
tent
just
up and-
camp lots.
Yeah, could be.
And that's why they were each lot was in separate ownership, because people were thinking, oh, well, you know what?
Maybe put a
They
structure up
buy
sometime.
cheap money to
Eventually, maybe.
have something in there, you know, to have it for the future.
It is interesting history, because it does make you wonder, what did they have in mind, and then why did no one actually exercise it all that time? But
How long before they broke it up?
we did look at like the original owner of all this.
Yeah, they're the ones that had across the street, they had the pig farm.
Real accessibility, other people let it go.
Not Etna, but there's another name that Blaisdell down.
So,
They owned all that land up there.
So, I don't know that we could make any kind of like declaration for you that would convince the town that we have the authority to declare this a public way. As much as that would, it would seem like that would give you the ability to say, okay, we're gonna develop it from Leslie on down to our site. It seems though that you should challenge the town on that, and that might be land court again.
What about the fire
Well,
department?
you don't go to.
They get the road blocked on the, how's the equipment get down there?
What's that?
Fire department.
They have a note on their list, and that's Ellsworth. There's no meeting house.
But no, how does he get down there? Do they have a key to open to access through the
Yeah.
alleys?
Do they have access?
Yeah,
Probably
there's a whole fire department list, and there's a special note for Leslie Terrace, and also to get that, it says whatever number Leslie entity, you can go to whatever number, and then you can go to Wilson Park number 64, whatever, I don't know if it's the right number, and they tell you which, if you're getting into a certain house. So they tell you, like, if you go to the fire department, there's a house here, like the one I talked about, 38 Ellsworth. It says, go here, go by this number, Wilson Park, go down Ellsworth if you gotta do a 911 call, because there's a gate to come from the other way.
So they don't come through the gate?
No,
Okay,
they
so
go
they
around,
go around.
they go around each way.
And same for the homes on Leslie Terrace, if they have an emergency, they have to.
It gives you
do the
like
same.
number 38 to number 64, you know, Ellsworth, go this way,
You
and
know,
then.
for that same reason, it seems like,
Safety hazard.
so, you know, and knowing that, isn't that sort of a narrow, dirt road that kind of goes up and over some unlevel terrain?
You
with some
mean coming from
washouts
Wilson Pond?
coming from Wilson
Yeah,
Pond.
no, it's not bad, it's pretty, I mean, the overgrowth's there, but there's a pretty good road there. It was the
Okay.
main road that went, way back in the day.
At some point, particularly if you can't get access off of Leslie, you gotta talk to the fire department and public safety to make sure that they don't have any concerns about putting 12 units.
Well, I'm amazed that they are okay with what's there now, considering that's their access, because there are a number of homes. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, really, that they have to access coming through that road. When you get to the end, it's interesting.
Does the planning board have any standards that allow one to improve a way? Not a full-blown subdivision road, but to do adequate improvements to make the way travelable. There's some towns will have, if there's an existing way, you can pave to 20 feet, maybe, so you do standards to make it
I'll
passable.
go for it right away.
Actually, though, I do feel like we do, because people have come to us for ox pasture.
Well, there are, I mean, in the rules and regulations, there are like templates for what, the various road upgrades.
Different standards.
Yeah.
But like a road improvement plan, a lot of towns have.
Yeah, but those are
That's
high
full-blown.
standards, he's talking about paving a road.
Yeah,
20
there's nothing
feet
that
long.
really, that would,
I
Unless
think
you can prove it's a private way, and then you can do what you want,
I think you have to bring it up to public roadway standard, you're right.
I mean, you can't open it up and not meet to the standard at this point.
Because ultimately, well, it's already, the town's gonna maintain it.
But that's another problem.
Well, that's gotta be the other issue, I'm sure the town has it chained off because they don't wanna maintain it, because if it's a public way, that's not, doesn't meet the standard of any other public way in town. By
Well,
width or
but I had,
access.
but I had lots on Walnut, and that was a dirt road also. And that was a public way.
Did you have to develop it out to the
No,
next?
no, that was grandfathered lots. I bought the house across the street, and the town took the lot, across the street, 6 and 9 Walnut. They took it to mine, they had that property tax sale. I mean, I bought one maybe in '08, and the other one was probably like 2015.
Well, I mean, again, I know you'd like to, I'm not a casebook on what the rules are here, but I know we dealt with this issue recently when we were discussing Mill Street, which is not fully built to the town standard, and they're building those roads down, those lots down.
but those were in our lots.
Those were in our lots, but we had a conversation about whether the road was adequate.
Yeah,
And if
but
it
the
wasn't,
road,
what they'd have to do to bring it up to
but the road
adequate.
was, it pre-existed the subdivision control law, and it, I think that's private, isn't it? Mill Road is private,
Mill Street is public,
pretty sure, all the way?
not until the bridge down by the
Okay.
the current
This
property.
road pre-exists subdivision.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
So, I think and I think, gotta bring it up to a standard that public safety will accept in the town, the public works. So it's gonna be engineered to I'm sure it's 25 foot, 24 foot is what we've been improving lately.
What happened on Mill Road, though, you were saying that back to that one that you were just.
I think we made a determination that the road was adequate because it is paved, it is crowned, it does have swale on the side. And,
What was the width of it?
I forget, but I think, just from my own recollection, it's adequately wide.
I mean, it seems like the town would want this improved though, from Wilson Pond to Ellsworth to, rectify, because you don't have the room to put a full-blown subdivision roadway, and I think people probably want to keep it a private way, they don't want to make it a public way, fully public.
So, if any of the board's question, I think we'd be of the same opinion you are. This, everything that we see points to it being a way in existence and therefore entitled to be. And you see, even the town has it on their inventory, so, but I think you gotta fight the town.
No, but it's an important thing, you as the planning board can determine based on plans what the status of that way is. That's what you do when you do an A&R plan. If I submitted, so the thing is that, say I do perimeter plans on the lots, I can come to this board and say, does this have adequate way. And you can say, yes, that way, based on all these plans, we'll sign the A&R plan that you have a private way, but it provides access, or public, whatever these plans are. You're the only one that can make that finding is the planning board. You do that all the time when you sign an A&R plan, you know? I mean, and the unique thing with these lots were conveyed like when there was a subdivision in the 50s. And Raleigh adopted the subdivision control law, but these were just deeded out separately. And then zoning got adopted in the 60s or whatever that then defined frontage. But one option that owning these lots is that I can come to the planning board with a permanent plan and say, hey, this was done when the subdivision standards were in effect. It never got approved, but would you look at it? You know, and that's, you know, and I can provide a lot of plans. I got about 12 plans that show very similar, because you have Leslie Terrace that got approved, you have the easement that shows the easement that gets to Ellsworth, that gives them access. You know, even though they don't get access from the frontage they have, they get it through an easement. But there's all these plans that went on, and it's like, and have you look at it as a board and say, yeah, that smells, you know, that passes the test or it doesn't. I mean, it seems like there's some indication, you looking at this, that one could say, hey, you know, this is a way that you should be able to get a building permit, correct?
Well, you could get a building permit if it was, certainly if it was a public way, either through regular permitting or Board of Appeals, so you have an automatic hardship criteria. This is a lot that was predetermined before zoning.
Correct. So they look at all these plans done in the 70s, and it says, that's Ellsworth Road. And then, just like this planning board determined Leslie Road is a road, Ellsworth, how does this become Meeting House? Like someone made a typo when they were typing on the plan that this was technically Meeting House that was, got written of in 1880? I mean, that's...
That could happen, but it may have had some logic, but Meeting House did connect from A to B. And maybe that piece should not have been Ellsworth. But what difference does it make?
Well, it's important, Ellsworth, because Ellsworth wasn't abandoned, the old Meeting House was. And the problem is, someone couldn't find the point when Meeting House is based on the 1835 town meeting motion.
Well, but that's what I was about to say. It
It's like,
doesn't
you
matter
don't
what
know
they
where it
called
is.
it matters where it was laid out.
Yeah, right. But this board, though, reactivated that Ellsworth Road. I mean, I would strongly argue, like I am now, but Ellsworth Road, this lot that says Lot B, that didn't conform with zoning, this board that signed this says that this has adequate, frontage on a way.
Because it
And
does.
that way being this.
No, could have been.
Couldn't have been anything else.
Could
There's
have
no
been
other
the Y.
name.
It could have been the
It
Y.
could have been north of the Y.
No,
Because
but
you've
there's
got
no
front-
name there.
You got frontage.
Well, maybe there's, you know, for all the reasons you already brought up, maybe that's where you felt like, you know, if you put Ellsworth north of the Y, would it therefore make it Ellsworth?
And then Wilson Pond subdivision didn't exist. So that was only built in '85. So it's like, that was like, you're
Yeah,
going.
but that but north of that Y, it goes out, I know it goes out to Wilson Pond, but that farm, that horse farm that sits there in the corner of.
But it had no outlet. The only inlet was from Leslie. At that point of Leslie. It comes around and goes around Wilson Pond. It comes way almost near where 133 is. But that, you're in the middle of the woods, and you know, you're like in a 15-foot road.
Well, when was it, I mean, not every house in Wilson Pond was developed in the 80s. There's one in there in particular that I think.
Well, that's the one they're talking about. That's
Yeah.
what this road
The
feeds.
farmland, but even there where Jackie Lee's lives, Paul Lee's. It's got that German-looking chalet type house there.
Yeah,
That
was-
house has been there for, predated that subdivision.
Correct, and if you went to that house, you drove down here, you went by 62, which was a house built in 1950, that was 62 Ellsworth, and then that one's like, you know, they changed the name because now
You
it's
got,
on
you come
Wilson.
out past the tennis court.
Yeah.
And then across.
Yeah, right across, yeah,
Ellsworth,
yeah.
they're right across there.
Yeah, but that was, they drove to their house, that was the way. and then-
Oh, okay, so
This way.
I believe you. It's
Yeah.
curious because I could see that having been the only way of access. Obviously, they get access through Wilson now.
Yeah.
But that house clearly was there predating everything else.
Correct, and I have in the package, I have like, when the, on the assessor's field card, when the houses were built. And it shows that it was built like 1942 and 1955 or whatever. So it was built a long time ago, and that's how they had to have access, is Ellsworth. And then what were the purpose of the telephone poles? I mean, they put telephone poles in 55, so it was to serve them houses. And there's no easement or record. In 55, they would have got an easement. The Raleigh Electric Department can't just go put poles anywhere. They gotta own the land where you need an easement.
Well, that doesn't really always happen.
No, but in
I got a
55
telephone pole that it has no easement on my land.
So maybe it shouldn't happen, but it doesn't, right?
It's the only way they could get to the house behind.
I think it's a,
Time to go home.
let us know what we can do. I don't think we can disagree with what you're saying, but I also don't think I have any authority, or the board has any authority to adjudicate it for you either, or tell the town. I don't think the town board, the Department of, the Highway Department's gonna take down the gate if I tell them to.
No, but if I came with an A&R plan for lot 23, this planning board can endorse that plan,
Yes.
right?
I think on our own finding that it meets, the roadway meets the criteria, yeah. Now, that doesn't, I don't think you can then take that plan down to the Department of Highway and say you gotta move the gate. But I think I think it's the first step to getting that gate moved.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I'd like to do. I mean, I'd like to continue the next meeting, maybe look a little bit, because it's like, we want to do this friendly, so we want to kind of look at the site plan, because we're going to move forward with this, be it, houses or whatever, you own the land. And then see which way that the, incorporate comments that the board may have.
All right, good. Well,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you. Thank you
Good
for
luck
your
with
time.
it. We'll talk some more about it, okay?
Okay.
If
Thank you.
if you come again, Kurt, we'll put you earlier in the.
Don't worry about that, we'll go in, I don't mind. Thank you, guys.
Happy to wait, thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right.
Also, we did have one more piece of business, the cell tower, one of those exemption cell tower, it's in the packet.
Yep.
And this is it here, they were adding a generator pad here, up here on Prospect Hill.
With a lot of generator pads up there.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
One every 6 months.
Wish I could get decent service now.
Is
Is
there
it
a-
replacing one, like?
Are they putting like redundancy on there? or
I don't
going back?
understand the amount, like, I feel like we get one of these literally every 6 months.
Yeah, well, a lot of those aren't like, not for this, this cell tower. So we've only had one or two for, ground level, like a new pad
Yeah.
within that compound area. Other things have been like antenna replacement,
Okay.
and they've taken out equipment and put in newer equipment at the ground level. But this is like only the second one, I think, at this location. And this is actually for, proposed diesel generator.
Your signature on this too. This is, that's our agreement that we want Abazade to continue to hold $114,000 until the project's
Great.
finished.
Ask him for more.
We're holding the whole thing.
You know what though, in the end, in the final assessment, and after talking to him, that guy Mike Petrie, we did the right thing. So we didn't screw up.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know,
Holding
so
on to it.
holding on to it
In the
and-
end, we're
and-
holding on to the full amount.
Right. Right. So,
I think he just wanted to highway jack.
but you can,
Yeah, it was actually initially supposed to, they were just supposed to introduce the board to this 40B, and we didn't really talk about the actual 40B at all, but that was the original purpose of the,
I don't know what the purpose was.
well, that was
He
the
wants to be,
road.
he just wants it to be a road, I don't.
Right.
Well, I
I'd
really-
say you're right, I think.
I didn't realize that this
thing
was
that's out
involved
there,
in.
and if they can build a couple houses down there.
Can you build, even if it's a 40B, you still gotta have public, an improved roadway all the way out. And he's got a lot of,
Yeah.
he's gonna have to pave that one way or the other.
I think he wants us to admit it's a public way that we're responsible for. I think, and then he's gonna try to lean on us to bring it up to standards, but if he wants to build on it,
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I thought the rule was, you get the street that you buy on, and if it's lined with brick, then you get brick, and if it's lined with dirt, you get dirt.
You would know better than me.
Well, that seems, you know,
Where do
that
I
seems
have
to
to
be,
sign?
that's why they won't, that's why the
This is the,
town doesn't pave Oxbow pasture, you know what that is?
I think Chris-
Yes, I've read it.
It's one off of Weathersfield?
Yeah.
It says you have to notarize.
Well, the thing is, I can't notarize my own signature. So, I'll bring it to Nicole and she can have it, she can notarize my signature.
Okay, so you wanna.
Take the whole.
I'll take the whole thing. But I did want to get everybody
But
else's
you might
signature.
be right.
I feel his pain.
No, just trying to get the lots cleaned up, so that they.
Right away.
That has been.
I'm gonna end our public meeting now, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we can't hang out.
I'm gonna take a,
I made a motion, we adjourn.
and I'll second it. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. You can kill the meeting. Thanks.
I remember the Attorney General came back and said we can hang out as long as we want.